Chapter 251. Now that Tianji has grown to the point where even I have to be wary of him, it's very difficult to kill him. But I believe none of you will deny that I can kill him 10,000 times. Mo Tianyun said solemnly, I have this ability. My feelings are conflicted. I think all of you can understand. I, Mo Tianyun, may not be a good person or a ruler, but I'm definitely not as despicable as Brother Ao makes me out to be. I'm suppressing my younger brother and sister. There's nothing I don't dare to admit about this. Mo Tianyun's sharp gaze swept across everyone's faces. Suddenly, he asked solemnly, but all the Grand Dukes here, who hasn't suppressed their competitors before? Have you? Facing his gaze, everyone's face was a little hot. Mo Tianji and Mo Qingwu were ambushed by the Heimo clan in the lower three heavens. Many people guessed that this matter must have something to do with Mo Tianyun. Because of this, their impression of Mo Tianyun was very bad. A person who could even harm his own younger brother and sister, how could he be trusted? But today, everyone suddenly felt that they were the same as Mo Tianyun. For the clan, for their dreams to not be eliminated, they were also suppressing the young people of their own clans. And those people were also related to them by blood. They were also their own brothers and sisters. While they were mocking Mo Tianyun, they were doing the same thing as him. Wasn't this a very funny thing? Mo Tianyun, you're very eloquent. Ao Xian chuckled softly, what you've said is also correct. Furthermore, I also agree with it. For the sake of the clan's survival, it's okay to go against one's conscience once in a while. We can all accept it. Your words have successfully built up your image in the eyes of the public. A man who dares to admit and bear the responsibility even though he has a stain is not bad. Ao Xieyun's evil eyes revealed a hint of mockery. If I wasn't here today, perhaps your words would have helped you gain many allies. But unfortunately, I'm still here today. Ao Xieyun smiled faintly and said, what you said is the truth. Some of it is also from your heart. No, we've all suppressed them before. But there's one thing that's different from you. Ao Xieyun said quietly, before my brothers come of age and deal with me, I will never suppress them. But you are different. Your sister is only 10 and she is a girl. Your younger brother is fighting for power with you. But Mo Tianji is different from you. He is fighting for power with you, but once it involves the interests of the clan, he will step back. However, you can harm the interests of the clan in order to fight for power. You can kill him before he matures, but don't forget that he didn't do anything to you at that time. Ao Xieyun said slowly, but you're guarding against him at all times. It's because you're guarding against him that he developed a desire for power. Because he can't get anything at all, including what he deserves. Aristocratic families are all the same. Therefore, this is the world. You don't have to explain anything. This is not your right. Even if we suppress them, we won't put them to death. Ao Xieyun said, but you guys are fighting to the death. And this competition was forced by you. This is the biggest difference between us and you. Mo Tianyun's face turned green and white. Ao Xieyun's words touched the pain in his heart. At this moment he was powerless to explain anything. He gritted his teeth and said, everyone is in such a clan and has their own understanding. Who doesn't have difficulties? Who doesn't have feelings? Who doesn't have helplessness? Who doesn't have desire? There's no point in arguing about these things now. Yes, you don't have righteousness. But your paranoia makes people uncomfortable. Ao Xieyun sneered and said, just like today, you shouldn't have suggested to deal with those two youngsters. But you did. So what? Mo Tianyun snorted. This doesn't match with your feminine personality. Ao Xieyun's eyes flashed evilly and said, usually when you encounter such situations, you'll wait for an opportunity to make a move. You won't take the lead. You're used to taking advantage of others when both sides are injured. Moreover, you'll take the title of being a righteous person. Ao Xieyun said bluntly, a dog can't change its habit. You won't jump out. But you're the first to stand out. Although what you said is reasonable, it also proves that you have enmity towards those two. And such people are always the ones you try to rope in or curry favor with. You won't take the initiative to provoke them or offend them. So, these two people must have enmity towards you. That's why you felt it. Ao Xieyun slowly raised his head. His evil eyes looked at Mo Tianyun's face. He laughed mockingly. And you, Emoton Yun, won't let go of any danger, even if it's just a groundless feeling. So, the purpose of your words is to let us be your shield. You're striking first to gain the upper hand, Ao Sheyan said. This is your paranoia. But why are you so paranoid today? Emotianyun, are you just paranoid? Emotianyun's face turned pale. He shouted, Ao Sheyan, what do you mean? Nothing. Ao Sheyan said indifferently. Everyone knows that those two people are from upper three heavens. Once everyone is provoked by you to go against them, then won't they take revenge? If they want to take revenge, how will they take revenge? When he said this, the faces of many men changed. Will they beat the big clans until they can't recover from the setback? Or will they be directly suppressed? Ao Sheyan said indifferently, if that's the case, most of the clans in upper three heavens will gradually decline. Emotianyun, do you want to dominate upper three heavens? Emotianyun's face turned pale. You're talking nonsense. But the way everyone looked at him had already changed. After Ao Sheyan said this, everyone immediately realized that this was something very likely to happen. Some people always like to use the heart of a villain to speculate about some things. But the sad thing is that this has become the main theme of this world. Emotianyun said coldly, so in this world, the honest people will have their bones piled up like mountains. The despicable and shameless people will have glory and wealth. He sneered and shook his head, boring. In this battle of words, Emotianyun lost. He had used his sense of crisis to rally everyone to stand on the same side as him so that they could deal with the huge crisis that might arise. However, Ao Sheyan had also used his sense of crisis to shatter his lies and push him to a deeper level. So Emotianji could only let out such a sigh in the end and use profound philosophy to defend himself for the last time. Everyone knows how to reason. What is said by a ruler is reason. But what is said by a villain is also reason. Ao Sheyan said indifferently, reason is reason. There is no difference. Well said. A voice agreed. Soft clapping was heard. Two people in snow-white clothes walked in. The hall was silent. Everyone looked at these two young men with different expressions. Under everyone's gaze, Chu Yang and Gu Duxing walked into this small hall at the same time. Their current appearances were all carefully disguised by Chu Yang. They were completely different from their original appearances. Even their skin color, face shape, eye shape and the position of their facial features were completely different. Now the two of them were complete strangers who had appeared in this world. Walking into this circle this time, although Chu Yang and Gu Duxing tried their best to control themselves, their hearts were not calm. From Gu Duxing's point of view, they were all familiar faces. He knew most of the men here. But from Chu Yang's point of view it was different. There were also many familiar faces. Chu Yang sighed in his heart. Except for a few people, almost everyone here was here. Dozens of years later, it was these people who stirred up the entire three heavens. Even upper three heavens was shaken. Black Demon, Dark Bamboo, Lone Guest, Poison Spirit, Tianji, Li Xiong, Tuesday, Black Saber, Qianhao, Duxia, Mingluo, Chonghua, Tianrue. Sitting in the middle was a young man with a calm but sharp expression. He was Duxia Ao Sheyan, one of the 12 absolutes. Lone Guest, Gu Duxing, was beside him. Black Saber was using Ask the Heaven sword to stir up trouble. The one standing in the corner was Two Clan's Grand Duke, Tu Qianhao. And the one sitting behind Ao Sheyan was a young man with a curly beard. He was Li Xiong too. The Black Devil and the Dark Bamboo weren't here. Chu Yang didn't know who the Poison Spirit was. Emotianji wasn't here. The viburnum flower in the dream was the viburnum flower in the heavens. He was smiling shyly and had a shy expression on his face. Later, everyone thought that viburnum flower was a woman. However, Chu Yang knew that this famous viburnum flower was the great duke of the Xie clan, Xie Danqiong. His famous hidden weapon was Chonghua. Meng Luo and Tianrue were not here. But even so, Lone Guest, Li Xiong, Tu Qianhao, Duke Xie Chonghua, and Xie Danqiong were all gathered here. People. There was also someone who was not inferior to any of them. He was Mo clan's Grand Duke, Missouri Tianyun. Among these people, Jizhu was killed by Mo Tianyun's cousin in the end. Mo Tianyun died in the hands of Mo Tianji. As for Luo Kudi's elder brother, Luo Kuwu, He finally lost his life in the battle between the two clans under Motianji's scheme. And the two Grand Dukes of Gu clan, Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu, were nowhere to be found. They had already disappeared from the battle. Now Black Devil and Dark Bamboo had risen. The remaining 10 people were also beginning to show their abilities. In the previous life it was your world. But in this life there is me, Chu Yang quietly said in his heart. Everyone, this is the first time we meet. Greetings. Chu Yang elegantly cupped his fists. He had a gentle smile on his face, but it was filled with a kind of noble reserve. It did not make people feel disgusted. This Grand Duke is? Aoshian's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. May I ask for your name? My surname is Chu. Chu Yang's voice was clear. This is my big brother. He does not like to talk. So it is Grand Duke Chu. Aoshian's heart trembled. Surname Chu? Chu clan of Upper Three Heavens? Although Chu clan was not listed as one of the great clans of Upper Three Heavens, it was still a super clan. Chapter 252. I don't dare. I am Ping Chu Fei. This is my big brother Chu Nan. Chu Yang smiled warmly. Gu Duxing, this Chu Nan, immediately glared at him and shouted, "Shut up!" However, Ao Xieyun and the others were already smiling. Chu Nan? Virgin? This name is really meaningful and makes people daydream. Dare I ask for the names of all of you? Chu Yang smiled shyly and said with the innocence of a young man, "We brothers like to make friends the most. I am Emotianyun." Emotianyun smiled. From his expression, no one could tell that he had just encouraged everyone to deal with these two people. However, he had actually said it himself. I am ashamed to say this. I was worried about the pros and cons of your arrival. Haha. Now that you have appeared, I feel as if I have been a villain in vain. Oh. Chu Yang smiled and looked at him with appreciation. Elder Emo is really frank. I like this kind of person. Emotianyun smiled in a feminine manner. His expression showed that he was speaking from the bottom of his heart. He said, being in Jianghu, there are some things that I need to think about. Over time I have developed such a bad habit. Elder Chu, please don't laugh at me. Of course not. Chu Yang said sincerely. My father has taught me countless times that caution is the way to survive in Jianghu. Brother Emo is not only cautious, but also honest. You are really a good friend that is hard to come by. Emotianyun, Ao Xieyun and the others were stunned. No one was sure how long this Elder Chu had been eavesdropping outside. But one thing was certain. He definitely heard at least once. Even if he didn't hear the whole thing, he should have heard the end of it. In any case, he shouldn't be so intimate with Emotianyun. What was going on? This Elder Chu didn't know right from wrong. I am Ao Xieyun. I am Luoku. Remember, I am Jiju. Jiju's self-introduction made Tu Qian Hao, who had been standing in the corner with a sullen face, laugh. This kind of clown was indeed the only one in San Tianyun. The corner of Chu Yang's mouth twitched. He thought in his heart. Fortunately, Jimo's little hand didn't come. Otherwise, it would have been difficult to distinguish between these two brothers. After a round of introductions, the atmosphere in the hall became lively. Along the way, this city is really lively. Chu Yang smiled reservedly. Every movement of his showed the demeanor of a well-educated disciple of a great aristocratic family. I heard that the people here are fighting for the martial Saint Sword? Saint Saber? These are all rumors spread by ordinary people. They are not to be believed. Emotianyun smiled. Duke Chu came down from Upper Three Heavens. You should know that thousands of years ago, there was no Ask the Heavens Martial Saint or Underworld Saber Saint on this continent. This kind of lie can only fool those who don't know. As for us, we're just watching the show and laughing. Emotianyun spoke very appropriately. Just a moment ago, the awkwardness from Ao Xieyun's mocking of him to the point of being speechless actually disappeared. His eyes and expression were normal. Oh, is it fake? Chu Yang smiled slightly. Then, he changed the topic and started chatting with everyone. This time, he came down with the title of Duke of a great aristocratic family of Upper Three Heavens. Naturally, everyone had some misgivings and would not offend him. However, there was no intimacy between their words. Other than Emotianyun, who tried to cover up and said a few more words, only the two brothers, Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu, still flattered these two Duke of the Chu clan. Regarding this, Gu Duxing felt a little uncomfortable. When he was in the clan, these two brothers had always disliked him. When they had time they would prank him and even want to kill him. Immortal, in front of so many people, can you have a little integrity? As for the others, they were neither too close nor too distant. They were neither too close nor too distant. Their sense of propriety was just right. As for Dongwu Lei, Xie Danqiong, Tu Qianhao and the others, after introducing themselves, they did not say anything else. They just sat there and quietly drank their tea. Li Xiongtu's voice was the loudest. He and Luo Kuwu huddled together and argued to death. Jizhu was lying on the table pretending to be dead. His body was still as boneless as before. However, Chu Yang Tongsai's sudden change of topic caught the attention of all the dukes. The thinking of geniuses was like this. If you like to say something, I don't like to hear it. But if you deliberately want to hide something, I am very interested in it. Moreover, everyone knew what Chu Yang's identity represented. This meant that he had more information than everyone else. Why did he change the topic? Could it be that there was something fishy about this? Duchu, did the two brothers come alone? Ao Xieyun's eyes flashed wickedly as he asked. This, Chu Yang's eyes flashed and he said no. Ao Xieyun smiled knowingly and said, no matter what you do, having someone follow you around is indeed not a good feeling. Haha. That's right, that's right. Chu Yang acted as if he had found a soulmate. Brother Ao is really understanding. After joking around for a while, Chu Yang pulled up Gu Duxing, who was surrounded by Gu Yinyang and Gu Yinyu. He said goodbye to everyone and returned to his room. Before he left, his face flashed with a hint of joy. Ao Xieyun waved his hand and the two experts of the Ao clan stood at the door. What do you think? Ao Xieyun asked. He looked down on Mo Tianyun and was Mo Tianyun's enemy. But at this moment he wanted to discuss with Mo Tianyun. Because in this aspect Mo Tianyun did have an advantage that others did not. These two people should have been guided here by Du Fa Kai. Mo Tianyun said seriously. That's right. Ao Xieyun agreed. The two of them clearly came here to test something. Mo Tianyun frowned. A little bit. They were very happy when they left. Mo Tianyun snorted. Not bad. After exchanging a few words, the two mortal enemies confirmed the suspicions in their hearts. Then they separated. Then Ao Xieyun stood up and walked out. Mo Tianyun also took the bodyguards of the Mo clan and swaggered away. The two of them used each other as tools to confirm their suspicions. Once they finished using each other, they immediately went their separate ways. Xie Danqiong's face showed a hint of contemplation. Although he followed behind Ao Xieyun, he also left. In an instant Jizhu, Luo Kuwu, Dongwu Lei, Tu Ganhao, Li Xiongtu and the others all left. Moreover, each of them had their own reasons. Tired, sleepy, tired, hungry. Inside the small hall, only Gu Yenyang, his brother, and a few others were left. Suddenly it seemed very empty. However, these people were the ones who really didn't see anything. Just as Chu Yang said, some schemes could only be used against geniuses and wise people. Against ordinary people or even fools they were completely useless. Then Gu Duxing's white robe fluttered as he left. After a while, Chu Yang also left Heaven-reaching Tower under everyone's watchful eyes. For 3 days, the guards of the great clans did not make a move. Until the afternoon, when Chu Yang and Gu Duxing returned one after the other, no one made a move. As the sky slowly darkened, the guards of the great clans began to move out. One by one, they left the inn and blended into the night. These people only had one goal, to investigate and confirm. Continent's capital was still bustling with activity. The number of outsiders was still increasing. Diwu Qingrou's Golden Horse Riders Department had already captured an unknown number of people. 3 days, those clans still have not made a move? Diwu Qingrou looked outside the window. Outside his window, there were several slender and elegant bamboos. Not much. Gao Sheng smiled. Since they know that this is fake news, why would they make a move? It's just a few guards seeing the right time to go out and practice. But if we really let them participate in the fight, they would not agree. It's good that there is no movement. As long as these people do not participate, then we can control everything. Diwu Qingrou slowly paced 2 steps. No. King of Hell Chu has not made a move yet. This is somewhat out of my expectations. Prime Minister, what do you mean? He went through untold hardships and traveled thousands of miles to cause trouble to create such a chaotic situation. But instead he was used by me. If it were you, what would you do? Diwu Qingro said. I would be aggrieved. Gao Sheng told the truth. But King of Hell Chu has not made a move, and he has not stopped. I am adding fuel to the fire, but he does not seem to notice? This should not be the case. Diwu Qingro frowned. But what will his next step be? King of Hell Chu should not be at his wit's end. Diwu Qingro said to himself, but how will he attack my advantage? Prime Minister, our advantage is natural. Even if King of Hell Chu is extremely smart, this is Great Zhao, not Iron Cloud. Perhaps King of Hell Chu is also worried about Iron Cloud. Gao Sheng comforted him. Otherwise, others might give up. But King of Hell Chu will never give up. Diwu Qingro said with certainty. Then he suddenly frowned and said, I heard that Heaven-Reaching Tower has 2 distinguished guests today. Moreover, Du Fa Kai personally came out to greet them with a very respectful attitude? Yes. According to the information, they should be 2 officials from the Chu clan of Upper 3 Heavens. Gao Sheng replied. Chu clan? Chu. Diwu Qingro frowned. This Chu. You tugged at the most sensitive chord in his heart. Prime Minister, are you suspecting King of Hell Chu? Gao Sheng said with concern. So confusing. Diwu Qingro quietly pondered for a while. Then he let out a deep breath. Chu family official. Chu family official. Even though there is no movement from the great clans, the focus right now is on Heaven-Reaching Tower. If Beyond the Heavens Tower is in chaos, then it will be real chaos. If they are really officials from Upper 3 Heavens, they are indeed distinguished guests. Diwu Qingro slowly said. If they are such distinguished guests, then tomorrow morning, I will personally go and pay them a visit. Prime Minister will personally go? Gao Sheng was taken aback. If they are really officials from Upper 3 Heavens, then me going is not condescending. Chapter 253. This night, Continent City was still in chaos. However, Ask the Heaven's Sword did not appear, nor did Underworld Saber. Even though they did not appear, the people of Jianghu did not stop fighting. Up until now, many descendants of Ask the Heaven's Sword and Underworld Saber Saint's grandsons had died. However, what no one noticed was that on this night, there were suddenly many mysterious people with black masks on their faces. They came and went, but their martial arts had reached a frightening level. They came and went, vigilantly watching every corner of the city, waiting for Ask the Heaven's Sword or Underworld Saber to appear. Tonight there were no clouds for thousands of miles. Even though the moon was not full, it was still bright in the sky. In a corner that no one knew about, on a night like this, Ask the Heaven's Sword and Underworld Saber had secretly met. Under the moonlight, Dong Wushang, Luo Kadi, GMO, and Yin Butong were quietly sitting on a branch of a big pine tree like 4 squirrels having a meeting. Have you really decided? Dong Wushang asked seriously. Yes. GMO nodded silently. Perhaps our own big clans will also get involved in this matter, Dong Wushang said without the slightest bit of emotion. So what? GMO's face did not have its usual frivolous expression. Instead, it was a bit serious. With the appearance of Calamity Sword, the 3 heavens are already facing a reshuffle. If the G clan is destined to decline in this storm, it is fine if it is a bit earlier. However, if the G clan can use this opportunity to advance, I will be very happy. GMO's face was serious. Suddenly, he revealed a smile that did not know whether to laugh or cry, and said, plus in this trial my dear brother is the leader. Cough cough, I suspect that even if this matter is confirmed, and we put the saber and sword in front of him, he won't even bat an eyelid. Luo Kadi and Yin Butong shrugged their shoulders. Dong Wushang almost burst out laughing as well. Unable to hold back his laughter, he said, You're right. That brother of yours is indeed the only weirdo in the history of the 3 heavens. I can only roll my eyes at such a compliment. GMO sighed. Although I know that you are speaking from the bottom of your heart, it is still somewhat unpleasant to hear. What I am most curious about is, why did your G clan allow your elder brother to become a Grand Duke? What I am even more curious about is, your elder brother is so lazy. How did he manage to cultivate to such a level? I'm still wondering why. I'm still wondering. Luo Kadi furrowed his brows, beaming with joy, his expression serious, as if he was discussing some academic issues. What you should be wondering is, why is your mouth like a cesspit? Even if you block the entrance, you can't block the stench. GMO fiercely glared at him. Ji Butong laughed and fell down from the tree. He climbed up with difficulty and leaned against the tree trunk, laughing silently with a pained expression. Dong Wuxiang was helpless. It was simply impossible to discuss something with these guys in a serious manner. Don't worry, your Dong family is also fine. Your elder brother Dong Wu Lei is also a person with a sense of propriety. Moreover, as far as I know, your elder brother's strength is outstanding. So, you don't have to worry about anything, GMO comforted her. But my elder brother is not necessarily the same. Luo Kadi frowned and sighed. That bastard Luo Kawu looks very calm on the surface, but let me tell you, it is all a disguise. That guy's temper is so bad that you can't even think about it. Once he goes crazy, it will be terrible. Don't we still have you? GMO looked at Luo Kadi with disdain. At the crucial moment, can't you remind us? Me? Remind? What if I ruin boss's plan? Won't you guys skin me alive? Luo Kadi cried out as if he had been wronged. Then you make your own decision, Dong Wuxiang said. But this time, Gu Duxing's Gu clan is destined to suffer a great loss. Mo Tianyun used them as spears. Moreover, Gu Yanyang and Gu Yanyu are both very happy and narrow-minded. The two brothers are also vying for power. That is the Gu clan's matter. Naturally, second brother Gu will worry about it. We don't care about that. The other three said in unison. Besides, Gu Yanyang and Gu Yanyu have long been unhappy with them. If we just kill those two bastards, I think Gu Duxing will be very happy. He won't even shed a tear. Actually, Gu Duxing must be very eager to personally cut off those two dog heads. Since that is the case, then we have to prepare. GMO looked at the sky and said, when the moon is bright, the time has come. Dong Wuxiang nodded deeply. Luo Kadi suddenly thought of something. He suddenly hugged his stomach and laughed silently. Even tears came out of his eyes. What are you thinking about? Dong Wuxiang was very depressed. This guy was simply crazy. I am thinking about the names of the two Dong brothers. Oh, my mother. Oh. Luo Kadi rubbed his stomach. Dong Wuxiang was very curious. What about our names? You and your brother Dong Wu Lei. Ha ha ha. Luo Kadi simply opened his mouth and laughed wildly. The three of them could clearly see Luo Kadi's tongue trembling and jumping in his mouth. What is it? GMO scratched his head. Listen. Dong Wu Lei animal type. Oh. Luo Kadi was overjoyed. As for Dong Wuxiang, it is even more meaningful. Animal type. Damn Dong Wuxiang. Even an animal type is on you. Before he finished speaking, Dong Wuxiang, who could not bear it any longer, punched out. Luo Kadi's laughter came to an abrupt end. He fell from the tree with a face full of blooming peach blossoms. Dong Wuxiang turned around with a murderous look. He looked at GMO and Miao Badong, who were about to laugh. He gritted his teeth and asked, isn't it very funny? Not funny, not funny. GMO shook his head like a rattle drum. What is Luo Kadi saying? I don't understand a word. Miao Badong hurriedly nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. Yes, I don't understand a word. Humph. Dong Wuxiang gritted his teeth and shouted, get lost. GMO and Yin Badong climbed down the tree with sweat all over their foreheads. They left in the darkness of the night. From afar, they heard GMO's uncontrollable laughter. Animal type. This motherfucking second young master Luo is a genius. What a famous saying. Miao Butong's voice, ha ha ha. Dong Wuxiang clenched his fist, and the sound of his joints cracking could be heard. But GMO and Miao Badong had already disappeared very quickly. Dong Wuxiang jumped down, grabbed Luo Kadi, who was about to escape, and gave him a beating. I was wrong, fourth brother, my dear fourth brother. I was really wrong, please be magnanimous. Ha ha. Oh, this is too funny. Luo Kadi cried out in pain and begged for mercy, but he could not help but laugh wildly. For a moment he could not tell whether it was pain or pleasure. His whole body was trembling, and he could not tell whether it was from being beaten or laughing this time. Dong Wuxiang mercilessly beat him to his heart's content. Every punch was heavy and every punch hit flesh. The bright moon gradually rose to the top of their heads. The moon that was missing a corner was still bright in the sky. Suddenly, from a certain place in the city, a round beam of light suddenly shot out. It seemed to be in the shape of a sun, reflecting the moonlight in the sky, shining brightly. This beam of light was not very thick, only the thickness of a fist, but it was very condensed. Especially in the middle of the night, it was even more eye-catching. In an instant, countless night walkers discovered this strange phenomenon at the same time. They could not help but raise their heads to the night sky, watching with rapt attention. In the next moment, the situation suddenly changed again. Another arc of light rose into the sky. It crossed with the cylindrical beam of light, and suddenly the sky shone brightly, as if a sun and two moons had appeared at the same time. One moon, one crescent moon. In the silent night sky, two screams came from two places at the same time. Then the two beams of light disappeared at the same time. Only a full moon was left in the sky. Complete silence. However, the strange scene just now was deeply imprinted in everyone's eyes. Most of them were astonished. What the hell is going on? At the same time, two white figures suddenly appeared. Under the combined moonlight, under the reflection of the white snow, these two snow-white figures were like immortals from the heavens, coming from the sky. When they arrived, the two people suddenly split into two directions without saying a word. Each of them had an extremely sharp fleeting sword chi, and rushed towards the direction where the two beams of light had appeared. Swordsmen. These two handsome young men were actually two swordsmen who had achieved great swordsmanship. The white figures flashed and disappeared instantly. Heaven and earth returned to silence. At the same time, dozens of faster black figures also rose and chased in these two directions. In the night sky, the sound of clothes fluttering in the wind could not be heard. Suddenly, dozens of crowns appeared in the night sky. All the people of the martial world who saw this scene felt cold all over. This was a stage that belonged exclusively to experts. At this moment, ordinary people with mediocre cultivation should not even think about it. It was best to retreat. Dozens of king-level experts? What the fuck is going on? Chu Yang's figure was like a bolt of lightning, turning into a white line in the sky, showing a sense of urgency. However, he only saw three black-clothed sovereigns when he arrived at the scene. Although his speed was fast, he still could not compare to the king-level experts. Chu Yang's eyes swept around, and then landed elegantly. His white clothes fluttered, and he landed in front of the three men in black. "Seniors, you're really fast." Chu Yang's gentle voice carried the shyness of a young man. He said softly and slowly, "Although I tried my best and was one step ahead, I still fell behind. Elder Chu is too polite." The three men were all in black, and they did not dare to be negligent. "Well, dare I ask the three seniors, did you discover anything after coming first?" Chu Yang asked seriously. Chapter 254. "I was just looking at those glowing things for fun, huh?" Chu Yang said sincerely. "I have a little sister at home who loves these glowing things the most. I want to buy them for her to play with. I'm just a youngster. I'm sorry for making you laugh at me." "Little sister?" The three king-level masters rolled their eyes at the same time. Motherfucker, these lords of great clans are really out of the ordinary. They can lie without batting an eyelid. It's as normal as eating cabbage. Even this young man, who seemed to be in his 20s, had such an ability. "Yes, we were just looking at them for fun. Ha ha ha." The three king-level masters were naturally not stupid. Even though they belonged to three different clans at this moment, they were surprisingly in sync. Ha 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 ha. Everyone had a tacit understanding, but they all smiled at each other with their own ulterior motives. The sound of clothes fluttering in the air was heard as a few people landed. Even though their faces were covered, everyone knew that they must be familiar with each other to be able to arrive so quickly. "Did you find anything?" Humph, the three king-level experts from before weren't as courteous to this newcomer as they were to Chu Yang, the Duke of Upper Three Heavens. They ignored him and snorted. Then each of them flew away. "Arrogant my ass." One of the later masters spat and scolded. "Seeing that the three of you didn't fight, I know that you didn't see anything." His words were the truth. If there really was something, then the three king-level masters would have already fought to the death. "Yes, I will also go first." Chu Yang politely took the lead. He smiled and gave his greetings. Then he took 2 steps back in a refined manner. Then, he leaped into the air and disappeared without a trace. He really is the Duke of Upper Three Heavens. There is nothing to say about his temperament. One of the king-level masters sighed. Immediately after, everyone's body shook and the crown in the sky also disappeared in an instant. At heaven-reaching tower, all the lords of Upper Three Heavens were waiting, except for Jiju who was sleeping soundly. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the masters who went out came back. Each of them had an anxious expression as they entered the Duke's room. Then, heaven-reaching tower suddenly became quiet. Everyone was nervously discussing something in their rooms. The light of the sun and moon? Sun and moon shining together? Aoxian frowned. He stood up and paced back and forth. He muttered, "Could it be that it's not?" Several experts of the Ao clan were calmly sitting opposite him. Each and every one of them seemed to be racking their brains to recall something. There is definitely no such person in the Ask the Heavens martial saint. As for the underworld saber saint, that is even more nonsense. Aoxian frowned and said, "I always thought that this was King of Hell Chu's scheme." After Grand Duke Jiju heard the report, he rolled over on the bed with the quilt wrapped around his body, revealing a thigh that was covered with dense black hair. He scolded and then he started snoring. The 2 king-level experts looked at each other helplessly, and then retreated. Sun and moon shining together? Dong Wulei sat cross-legged on a prayer mat in the middle of the room. He pondered deeply. You should also think about it. What is the purpose of this? This was the reaction of the Black Saber clan. Sun and moon shining together? Luo Kuwu sat up from the bed. His eyes shined brightly. You two, one will keep an eye on the Mo clan's Mo Tianyun. The other will keep an eye on the Ao clan's Ao Xiayun. As long as they move, we will move. If they do not move, we will not move. Keep an eye on them. Do not relax. This was the reaction of the Luo clan. Or perhaps this was the most effortless reaction. Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu frowned and looked at each other. Why don't we go and ask Mo Tianyun? If something good really happens. Even if our Gu clan cannot eat the meat, it is still good to follow behind and drink the soup. All the great clans have a reaction? Are they sure that the 2 Upper Three Heavens dukes came for this? Li Xiongtu's beard expanded. He growled, whether it is useful or not, let's get it first. I will leave this matter to the 3 of you. What? No problem. No matter which clan it is, let's get it first. Saber and sword shine together. Sun and moon shine together. Tu Qianhao's reaction was unique. We only need to watch closely, and don't act blindly without thinking. We'll let them fight each other to the death as long as the target appears. We'll take advantage of them if we can. But we'll kill them if we have no other choice. No matter what, we cannot afford to lose. Sword and saber reflecting sun and moon. I seem to have some impression of this. It was in a book called Family Discipline and Harmony. Which book was it? Xie Danqiong's tender face still had a shy expression like a girl's, but his 2 slender eyebrows were slowly knitting together. Sword and saber appearing at the same time. No, tonight is nighttime. Xie Danqiong slowly recalled. His voice was so low that it couldn't be heard. More than 10,000 years ago. No, more than 8,000 years ago. No, more than 1,000 years ago, he frowned. Then he suddenly slapped his thigh. Yes. Yes. What is it? Young lord, did you remember something? The 2 king-level masters of the Xie clan were startled. More than 1,000 years ago, there was an expert who disappeared like a flash in the pan. Xie Danqiong's phoenix eyes exposed a fierce radiance. His hands that were placed on his knees didn't move. However, 2 dreamlike viburnum flowers suddenly bloomed in his white jade-like palms, slowly rotating. This expert was a sword and saber duel master, and was called a saint at the same time. Xie Danqiong said in a low voice, sword and saber madman, Dongfang Qiong. Dongfang Qiong? The 2 king-level masters were perplexed. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the heaven and earth. They called out in a low voice at the same time. Dongfang Qiong is known as the saber and sword madman. Only he has the symbol valley, Xie Danqiong said calmly. The saber and the sword of the sun can slay immortals and gods. His brilliance shines through the ages. He is the saber and the sword madman. Legend has it that Dongfang Chong shocked the upper three heavens when he made his move. That's because he was a master of both saber and sword. He was a saint-level master. Could be said that he was at the peak of perfection. He only appeared for a short period of 20 years. However, the saber and the sword of the sun turned the entire upper three heavens upside down. Legend has it that a blazing sun and a cold moon would appear in the sky as long as he used his saber and sword. Xie Danqiong said softly. 20 years later, an expert of the Three Stars Divine Clan suddenly appeared for some unknown reason. He wreaked havoc in the upper three heavens. No one could stop him. Dongfang Songqiong was the #1 expert at that time. He was duty-bound. Therefore, he went to the meeting alone and fought a decisive battle with that expert of the Divine Clan. From then on, there was no news of him. That expert of the Three Stars Divine Clan never appeared again. Therefore, the marvelous scene of the saber and the sword reflecting the sun and the moon, and the two brilliances of the firmament disappeared. The two dreamy snowflakes in Xie Danqiong's palm spun more and more rapidly. His fair and tender face showed a trace of excitement. This is not the Ask the Heavens sword and the Underworld saber. Could it be the sunlight saber and the moonlight sword of the saber and sword saints Dongfang Songqiong? The two king-level masters of the Xie clan shook at the same time. Their faces showed a pleasantly surprised expression. No one knew that Xie Danqiong had always been low-key. However, his encyclopedic knowledge was the best in the upper three heavens. But if it is true with the strength of our Xie clan, wanting to obtain it is just wishful thinking. Xie Danqiong's eyes were calm, and his face was tranquil. The only way is to take advantage of the chaos and fish in troubled waters. From today onwards, don't move. Don't move? The two king-level masters asked at the same time. Yes, don't move. Xie Danqiong said calmly, we are inferior to the Dong clan, the Ji clan, the Mo clan, and the Ao clan when it comes to the strength of our clan. But as long as these two weapons are verified by them, they will inevitably fight fiercely over them. But you must know that, when two tigers fight, one of them is bound to be injured. With our strength, I'm afraid we will lose our lives if we don't stay calm. Moreover, the Mo clan will be able to dominate the upper three heavens and fight for the position of the great clan. The more Mo Tianyun thought about it, the hotter his heart became. However, this matter still needs to be handled carefully. You can't be careless. Mo Tianyun muttered to himself. His feminine eyes flashed with determination. If we really fight, then my opponents will be the Black Saber clan and the Ao clan. The rest of us are nothing to worry about. After all, he was different from Ao Xieyun. Although the two of them had similar intelligence, their situations were completely different. Ao Xieyun, as the #1 successor of the Ao clan, had a stable position and could sit back and relax. Therefore, in the face of this great temptation, he could still maintain a clear mind and clearly calculate the pros and cons of all aspects and how to deal with it. In an instant, he had already extended his thoughts to the problem of success or failure. Moreover, no matter how things progressed, he had already thought of countermeasures. Although Mo Tianyun was now a Grand Duke, his position was not stable. His younger brother, Mo Tianji, was eyeing him covetously and was ready to replace him at any time. Therefore, when Mo Tianyun encountered such a great temptation, the first thing he thought of was the stability of his position, and then the rise and fall of his clan. He immediately began to plot against his opponent. On this point, the two were completely different. All the great clans were discussing, but the discussion time was very short. After all, these men were very decisive people. However, the two people who should be the first to make a decision, Ao Xieyun and Mo Tianyun, pondered for a long time. Mo Tianyun thought over and over again but was not sure. Ao Xieyun also thought over and over again, but could not come to a conclusion. But there was one thing that the two of them did not agree on. Once the war started, the first two great clans to bear the brunt would be their two clans. And no matter what dispute there was, the final solution would be, it would have to go through their two clans. All the great clans had their own ulterior motives. Yes, there was one person who did not have ulterior motives. Grand Duke Jizhu. This young master was sleeping soundly. He didn't see the anxious faces of the king-level experts of his clan. They looked as if they were about to jump up and down. Not long after Chu Yang returned to his room, Gu Duxing came in through the window. "How is it?" Gu Duxing asked. "It's about time," Chu Yang said, "but right now we are just observing. We are still making plans and calculations. We are far from being hot-blooded and crazy. Seems that we have to do it again." "That's good," Gu Duxing said. "But if we do it again, only one can appear. We can't have two at the same time. The commotion is too big. It's best to appear under the name of Ask the Heaven Sword or Underworld Saber." "Of course." Chu Yang smiled mysteriously. "The location for the next time will be the final danger zone. Have you chosen it?" "I am considering whether to choose the Royal Palace or the Imperial Mausoleum." Chu Yang snorted and said. "Or the headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department? Royal Palace, Imperial Mausoleum. The headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department?" Gu Duxing sucked in a breath of cold air. This big brother Chu's heart was truly too vicious. Gu Duxing could imagine that if such a situation were to explode, then Great Zhao would not be as simple as just a big mess. It would definitely be a disaster for the entire country. On this night, Wu Yunliang led the remaining 300 people of Beyond the Heavens sect to Iron Cloud Citadel. Wu Yunliang had come several times and had secret talks with Tai Butian. But every time he came it was to ask for an audience. Tai Butian's attitude was reserved and distant. At that time Tai Butian was only a Grand Duke. But this time when he came to Iron Cloud it was already late at night. Moreover, Tai Butian, who was already the ruler of a country, personally came out to welcome him. He gave Wu Yunliang enough face. This made the people of Beyond the Heavens sect feel honored. After some greetings and introductions, Tai Butian's eyes searched for a long time. In the end, he could not help but ask Wu Yunliang in a low voice, "Sect Master Wu, may I ask where your sect's senior Meng is?" Wu Yunliang smiled bitterly and said, "My youngest martial brother has already left lower 3 heavens for upper 3 heavens." Tai Butian said apologetically, "It seems that senior Meng had no choice." "Yes, my youngest martial brother said that if he stayed in lower 3 heavens, he would become a tool for Diwu Qingro to attack his younger martial brothers." Wu Yunliang sighed softly. Youngest martial brother is proud and arrogant. Plus, he cares about his 2 younger martial brothers to the bone. How could he allow himself to be a burden to them? So he decided to leave. Tai Butian sighed softly. He was also a bit disappointed. He wanted to see Chu Yang's master and junior martial brother this time. He wanted to see what kind of master could teach such a talented disciple. He did not expect that Meng Chao Ran had already left. He left so freely without any hesitation. "Dare I ask your majesty, what is your majesty planning to do with our Beyond the Heavens sect?" Wu Yunliang asked tentatively. He did not want to ask, but Tai Butian's unexpected courteous attitude made Wu Yunliang ask this question. Tai Butian calmed down and said casually, "Beyond the Heavens sect will naturally remain Beyond the Heavens sect. Our strength will not be divided, and we will not belong to any department. What does Sect Master Wu think?" Yes. Wu Yunliang was startled. He originally wanted to merge Beyond the Heavens sect into Butian Pavilion. Then, under Chu Yang's supervision, he could smoothly catch the spies of the sect. While he was at it, he could follow the vine to the melon and expose Diwu Qingrou's scheme. After all, Chu Yang and Wu Qianqian were both at Butian Pavilion. Both of them had high positions and power. Butian Pavilion could not be separated from Beyond the Heavens sect, however. Tai Butian's words mercilessly shattered his fantasy. Moreover, Tai Butian's cold face told him that there was no need to talk about this anymore. Thinking of this, Wu Yunliang smiled bitterly. Tai Butian personally came out to welcome them, but how could it be for me? It was clearly for Meng Chao Ran. She was giving face to King of Hell Chu. As for me, the sect master of Beyond the Heavens sect. It's not worth mentioning. After arranging the people of Beyond the Heavens sect in a designated place, Tai Butian left behind a few officials to entertain them and returned to the palace. After a while, Wu Qianqian arrived under the escort of Butian Pavilion. "This is not possible." Wu Qianqian shook her head firmly. Chu Yang once said that anyone can enter Butian Pavilion, but not Beyond the Heavens sect. Wei Mao. Wu Yunliang was a little dumbfounded. Just letting a few people in was good enough. He did not expect Chu Yang to block this path ahead of time. If Beyond the Heavens sect wants to stay in Iron Cloud for a long time and flourish, it cannot enter the political arena and cannot enter Butian Pavilion. Wu Qianqian said. This is what Chu Yang once said. He knew that as long as you came, you would ask to enter Butian Pavilion or some other department. He told me to tell you, don't even think about it. Chu Yang said that if you really do this, then as long as Iron Cloud's crisis is not over, Beyond the Heavens sect will be fine. But once Iron Cloud's crisis is over, Beyond the Heavens sect will definitely be destroyed by Tai Butian. No ruler would allow their officials to collude with other sects. No wise ruler would allow this. If Beyond the Heavens sect is not used to death by Di Wuqing Ro, but dies under the butcher's knife of the people they are loyal to, that would be the greatest tragedy. These are all Chu Yang's words. Wu Qianqian said. I think Chu Yang's words are very reasonable. Chapter 256. Yes, Chu Yang also wanted me to tell you that no matter why you expelled him from Beyond the Heavens sect, he is no longer a member of Beyond the Heavens sect. Wu Qianqian hesitated and said, therefore, when you estimate the strength of Beyond the Heavens sect, you must exclude him. Otherwise you will suffer. Ha! Miao Yunliang sighed. He could not describe the feeling in his heart. Chu Yang also. Wu Qianqian lowered her head. What else did he say? Wu Yunliang frowned and smiled bitterly. He said, if you want me to stay in Butian Pavilion, then it would be best if you also expel me, the female slave, from Beyond the Heavens sect. Wu Qianqian bit her lips and said with difficulty, this way, we can truly guarantee Beyond the Heavens sect's future. Wu Yunliang sighed. Wu Yunliang was dumbstruck. Before coming here, he had thought about this possibility. But now that everything was going well, he could not help but feel that this was an illusion. He thought that all of this could be done. His original goal was to survive in the gap between Great Zhao and Iron Cloud, to survive under the bullying of the big sections. But now he had succeeded. He did not even have to wait for the final step to achieve his first goal. Therefore he was greedy. If the government and Zhang who developed at the same time and supported each other, would Beyond the Heavens sect not become the #1 sect in the world in a few years? But at this moment, the ruthless reality hit him hard in the head. Eldest martial brother. Do not forget that Beyond the Heavens sect belongs to Zhang Hu. Meng Chaoran's words once again echoed in his mind. If you insist on letting Beyond the Heavens sect enter the imperial court, there is only one possibility. That is when Beyond the Heavens sect is completely wiped out, and only a few people are left. The court is the court, Zhang Hu is Zhang Hu, and sects are sections. This cannot be reconciled and cannot be combined. Even the sects and clans of Zhang Hu are completely different, let alone Zhang Hu in the court. Good. Wu Yunliang's face seemed to have aged a few years. He turned his head and said, then I will follow your wishes and expel you. The walls of Beyond the Heavens sect. Wu Qianqian took a deep breath. She stared blankly for a long while. Suddenly, a bitter feeling of despair arose in her heart. Chu Yang did not say that he was no longer a member of Beyond the Heavens sect. He also did not say anything about Wu Yunliang expelling Wu Qianqian from the sect. Wu Qianqian had acted on her own initiative. Wu Qianqian had undoubtedly sacrificed her youthful years when she had made this decision. She had sacrificed her entire life for the sake of the black robe that represented King of Hell Chu. Perhaps your legend isn't here. Perhaps your future isn't here. Wu Qianqian thought quietly. Perhaps your future doesn't include me. But I'm willing to protect the legend you've created in this place. Black robe is here, King of Hell Chu is here, and you are here. You know how I feel, but you can't respond. I have never made myself known. For I have my pride. Even though I, Wu Qianqian, am just a girl from the pugilistic world, and even though I will never be able to catch up to your achievements, I still have my pride and dignity as a girl. That's why I didn't say anything. I didn't want to receive a clear rejection, and I didn't want to make things difficult for you. But I am here. Even if my heart is broken, even if my soul is broken, even if I am beyond redemption, I am willing to protect this dream of my heart. I will never tell anyone about it in this life. Wu Qianqian silently and firmly said this to herself. At this moment she was silent, but she was making a lifelong promise in her heart. Wu Yunliang sighed. He did not know what had happened, but he could clearly feel that his daughter, who was in the prime of her life at this moment of silence, was filled with heartbreak and depression. I'm going back. Wu Qianqian turned around and put on her black robe. The loose black robe covered her thin figure. She walked out with her head held high. She was displaying the domineering aura of King of Hell Chu at this moment. It didn't matter if it was her movements, footsteps, or aura. That kind of cruel and ruthless aura. Even though no one knew that behind this terrifying black robe that symbolized all of Iron Cloud, there was a delicate heart that was breaking little by little. The experts of Butian Pavilion who had been waiting outside immediately appeared and escorted this King of Hell Chu, who had shaken the entire Iron Cloud. Eldest brother. Kong Jingfeng walked out from behind the screen. Qianqian has really grown up. Yes, she has grown up. Wu Yunliang let out a long sigh and said, she has grown up to the point where even I, her father, do not understand her. When Wu Qianqian returned, Tai Butian was waiting for her at Butian Pavilion. Your Majesty? It is so late. Why are you here? Wu Qianqian asked in surprise. I couldn't sleep. There is something I need to discuss with you. Tai Butian sighed deeply. Between her eyebrows, there was an unconcealable worry. What is it? Wu Qianqian immediately became spirited. She knew that something that could make Tai Butian reveal such an expression was not a small matter. Butian Pavilion is going to make a big move. And you, King of Hell Chu, will have to make a few public appearances. Tai Butian said in a low voice. Did he encounter some trouble in Great Zhao? Wu Qianqian asked. Di Wu Qingro is not easy to deal with. That's right. Minister Chu has successfully caused chaos in the continent. However, he has also created an opportunity for Di Wu Qingro. What we need to do now is to prove that King of Hell Chu is still an Iron Cloud. Tai Butian looked at the black robe on his body. King of Hell Chu will always be an Iron Cloud. He will not leave. Niao Qianqian said in a low voice, regarding the operation, I have been planning it these past few days. It should be carried out tomorrow. But, Wu Qianqian raised her head. Her eyes were sharp. This is our Butian Pavilion's matter. The information should have reached my hands immediately. How did it reach your Majesty? This should be Chan Yutong's dereliction of duty. Tai Butian cut a rare sorry figure under Wu Qianqian's pressuring gaze. He straightened his face and coughed a few times. Then he said, I was the one who requested clan leader Chun to report to me as soon as possible regarding any news from the Great Zhao. But this is not in accordance with Butian Pavilion's procedures. Wu Qianqian said bluntly, Your Majesty, please take back this decision. Tai Butian opened his mouth and looked at her. After a long time, a complicated look appeared in his eyes. He said, That's fine. As for Butian Pavilion's operation, I will arrange it overnight. Wu Qianqian said indifferently, If your Majesty has nothing else to say, please go back. This was the autonomy he left for Butian Pavilion. Whatever he left behind she could not lose. Therefore Wu Qianqian's performance was extremely strong. She would not yield an inch, even if she was facing the emperor. This was Wu Qianqian's greatest pride. But this kind of forcefulness made Tai Butian suddenly have a strange feeling in her heart. Tai Butian looked at Wu Qianqian's golden ferocious mask in a daze. Looking at the black robe that covered her body tightly, a strange look appeared in his eyes. It was as if he was yearning, as if he was reminiscing, and as if he was angry. Wu Qianqian was shocked. Looking at Tai Butian's eyes, Wu Qianqian could not help but think too much. She thought about how His Majesty still had not married an empress or a concubine. She could not help but become extremely vigilant. Could it be that he actually has those kinds of thoughts towards me? She took 2 steps back and said coldly, Your Majesty, this is Butian Pavilion. Your Majesty, please conduct yourself with dignity. Tai Butian immediately became embarrassed. He coughed repeatedly and looked embarrassed. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Have thoughts towards you? How is this possible? Then cough cough cough, I will take my leave. Farewell, Your Majesty. Watching Tai Butian leave under the protection of the shadow guards, Niao Qianqian's eyes revealed a repressed look. Chu Yang, you bastard. You left me here. If by any chance His Majesty... if that happens, I Wu Qianqian would rather die. I will not let him have his way. My heart is already buried deep for you. Wu Qianqian's eyes slowly became as calm as ice. She waved her hand and said in a low voice, "Send my order. Tell Hall Leader Chun to come here immediately." Not long after, Chun Yutong almost sprinted to King of Hell Chu's door. Just as he was about to knock, the door suddenly opened. King of Hell Chu, wearing a black robe and a mask, appeared like a ghost. "Hall Leader Chun, you have been quite bold during this period of time." King of Hell Chu's strange words almost scared Chun Yutong out of his wits. "I do not dare." "Haha, you do not dare? What do you not dare to do, Hall Leader Chun?" Wu Qianqian smiled sinisterly. "Even the information about our Butian pavilion can't be seen by me, the minister. Yet, the emperor is here to tell us." Chun Yutong fell to his knees. "Minister, this is His Majesty's secret order. I do not dare to disrespect you. I do not care what difficulties you have." Wu Qianqian said without the slightest bit of sympathy. "Since you have done it, you must bear the consequences. Hall Leader Chun, do you think Heavenly Secrets Hall is punishing you? Or are you punishing yourself?" "I am willing to accept the punishment." Chun Yutong shuddered. Minister Chu's way of handling things was becoming more and more unpredictable. If Heavenly Secrets Hall was punished because of him, then everyone would know that he, the hall leader, was the one who was implicated. He had already been through this once. If it happened again, he would not be far from stepping down. 200 strikes of the rod. Wu Qianqian said casually, "Go get it yourself. If you miss one strike, you will automatically retire. Get out of here." Wu Qianqian roared. "If something like this happens again, be careful of your head." Chun Yutong fled in defeat. The surrounding guards were as silent as cicadas in winter. Wu Qianqian was silent for a while and said, "Pass down my order. Tell Hall Leader Chun to prepare for action." "Yes." Chapter 257. On the way back to the imperial palace, Tai Butian frowned as she sat in the palanquin. Her eyes were somewhat frustrated. "I just want to know if he is doing well in Great Zhao. Is he in danger? Is Jige going well? Whether or not he could withstand the immense pressure he was under right now." That was all. But Wu Qianqian's resolute and decisive struggle just now was very similar to, "They are all pitiful people." Tai Butian heaved a long sigh. Unknowingly, she had blurted out these words. "What orders does your majesty have?" The two shadow guards asked at the same time. "Pitiful people? Who?" "Nothing." Tai Butian's muffled and embarrassed voice came out from the palanquin. The two shadow guards said, "Oh," and disappeared into the void. In the palanquin, Tai Butian reached out and touched her hot cheeks. Thinking of the sentence just now, she couldn't help but smile bitterly and helplessly. Pitiful? Who is more pitiful? At least Wu Qianqian has a black robe and a King of Hell Chu. But I don't even have these. Being born in the royal family, was he destined to be a loner? Tai Butian heaved a long sigh. Who would know that I, the emperor, actually don't want to sit on the throne? Oh, men who plow and women weave, your greatest hope in life is the golden horse in Jade Hall. But do you know that my greatest wish is to be like you, working at sunrise and resting at sunset? Men plow and women weave, living a leisurely life? Tai Butian tiredly closed her eyes. Her body gently swayed along with the palanquin. She slowly felt that her heart was as lonely as the ice and snow at the top of the mountain. The road of the emperor is a lonely road. And I, Tai Butian, am destined to be more lonely than any other emperor. Because, the second half of the night, Diwu Qingrou's face was so ugly that it was somewhat scary. Sun and moon resurgence? Are you sure? I am sure. Jing Menghun's face was also not good. The moment he saw the sun and moon resurgence, he saw dozens of crowns appear in the sky. It was as if he saw the sky collapse. Sun and moon resurgence for 10,000 years, there is only one possibility. And it is related to sabers and swords. Diwu Qingrou took a deep breath and said, Sunlight saber and moonlight sword. So ruthless. King of Hell Chu, you are so calculating. Jing Menghun was shocked. Diwu Qingrou had clearly gritted his teeth and said these words. Being able to make Diwu Qingrou's face turn ugly was already an incredible matter. Being able to make Diwu Qingrou gnash his teeth was even more unimaginable. Everything is interconnected. Everything is interconnected. Diwu Qingro sighed and slowly said, "This should be King of Hell Chu's response. I hadn't expected that King of Hell Chu's counterattack would come so quickly and so sinisterly." Counterattack? Jing Menghun was puzzled. Even if it caused an even fiercer fight, it should still proceed according to the Prime Minister's plan. What was there to be afraid of? You don't understand. What's frightening isn't this kind of competition. What's frightening is where King of Hell Chu will detonate this competition. Diwu Qingro sighed and said, "There are two places for King of Hell Chu to choose from. One is the Imperial Palace, and the other is the headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department. If he chooses the Imperial Palace, it would be fine. Even if there is chaos, it would still be bearable. But if he detonates it at the headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department, then not only would all our efforts in the past few days be for naught, the entire Feng province would become a rotten mess. It would also be very likely that we would lose most of our manpower. You should know that the suction force of these sabers and swords is aimed at the clans of the three heavens." Diwu Qingro frowned. "And these people, even if they are lying in front of our door with only one breath left, they are not people we can recruit. We can only treat them and then send them away. There is no benefit for us. Tomorrow, I will personally go to Heaven-Reaching Tower. In addition to meeting the two Grandmasters Chu, I will also test the reactions of the major clans. I hope that the scene I don't want to see the most does not appear." Diwu Qingro's eyes were full of worry as he slowly spoke. The next morning, Chu Yang had just woken up when he heard a knock on the door. The shopkeeper of Heaven-Reaching Tower, Du Fa Kai, had come to visit. "Grandmaster Chu, haha, did you sleep well?" Du Fa Kai smiled from ear to ear. "Not bad." Chu Yang washed himself and said casually, "It was hard on you. Mr. Du, how did you know that I like this kind of absolute purple orchid the most?" "I really did not think of it." Du Shaokai became even more respectful and said, "My lord, this lowly one had to go to several places to get the absolute fragrance of the purple orchid from the Imperial Palace. If my lord is satisfied, then this lowly one is relieved." Chu Yang wiped his face with a towel and said, "It is so early in the morning. Does shopkeeper Du have an urgent matter?" Yes. Du Fa Kai respectfully said. "It is the Prime Minister of Great Zhao, Diwu Qingro, who sent someone to deliver an invitation. He wants to see the two Grand Masters this morning. This little one will pass on the message." "Prime Minister of Great Zhao, Diwu Qingro?" Chu Yang closed his eyes and revealed a thoughtful expression. His tone was also interrogative. "This Prime Minister Diwu is an extraordinary character," Du Fa Kai kindly reminded him. "With his own strength, he created Great Zhao's current prosperity." As he said this, he talked a lot. It seems that shopkeeper Du has a deep impression of this Prime Minister Diwu. Chu Yang said with a smile that was not a smile, "If that is the case, how can I not give shopkeeper Du face?" As he said this, he reached out and took the invitation. Du Fa Kai tactfully retreated. Diwu Qingro's invitation? Chu Yang flipped through the gilded greeting card, and a feeling of absurdity arose in his heart. He smiled and opened the invitation. On it was written, "Greetings, Brother Chu. Qingro has come to pay respects." These 8 words were written in an elegant and vigorous style. They were written in a strict manner. It was as steady as a mountain, but it also revealed an awe-inspiring aura. Looking at the literal meaning, it seemed like it was an old friend who had not seen each other for many years. This handwriting must have been deliberately done by Diwu Qingro. It is to give me a show of strength. Chu Yang smiled and put the invitation aside. He thought to himself, "It seems that Diwu Qingro still suspects that I am King of Hell Chu. But since this guy dares to take the risk, he has some courage." Chu Yang thought and suddenly shivered. It can't be just some courage. Could it be that Diwu Qingro himself is a master? I can't eliminate this possibility. Originally, Chu Yang planned to let Gu Duxing receive Diwu Qingro when he came, but now he changed his mind. Since Diwu Qingro was coming, why should he hide? Diwu Qingro was already suspicious of his identity. If he avoided meeting him, wouldn't it make him even more suspicious? If that is the case, then I will deal with you, the wisest person in the world. Chu Yang's eyes revealed a meaningful smile. This was his biggest opponent in the lower three heavens. If he did not meet him, no matter who won or lost in the future, he would inevitably have regrets in his heart. Diwu Qingro is coming? Gu Duxing walked over from the next room. He was full of energy. Yes. Should I deal with him or you? I will. Chu Yang said, but don't go away, so as not to complicate matters. Gu Duxing nodded. Suddenly, his eyes flashed with a lightning-like sword intent. If I kill this guy with one strike, absolutely not. Chu Yang was shocked. Who is Diwu Qingro? If he dares to come, how can he not be sure of his safety? I am sure that if we make a move, not only will we not be able to kill him, we will also die without a doubt. Gu Duxing said casually, I am just joking with you. Chu Yang sighed. How could he not see that Gu Duxing's heart was already filled with killing intent? He said seriously again, absolutely not. Do you understand? Okay. Gu Duxing said unwillingly. Also, don't show your hostility. Chu Yang warned again. Okay. Your aura, okay. Your sword energy, are you tired of it? Chu Yang was speechless. When the morning sun shone on the earth, Diwu Qingro arrived at heaven-reaching tower. There were only 2 people accompanying him, Jing Menghun and Yin Wu Tian. With these 2 king-level leaders by his side, Diwu Qingro was confident that even if heaven-reaching tower was a dragon's lair or a tiger's den, it would not be able to stop him. Prime Minister, Duke Chu has been waiting for you for a long time. Du Fei stepped forward and said, Shopkeeper Du has worked hard. Diwu Qingro smiled. Did Duke Chu say anything? Du Fei was startled and said, Duke Chu did not say anything, but from his expression it seems like he is used to it. Used to it. Diwu Qingro chuckled and said, Shopkeeper Du, please lead the way. Thank you. When Diwu Qingro climbed the stairs to the last floor, he suddenly felt something and could not help but look up. In front of him was a vast expanse of snow and ice. 2 young men in white stood quietly at the top of the stairs to welcome him. It was only 2 people, but Diwu Qingro suddenly felt like he was surrounded by flowers and jade trees. At the same time, a faintly discernible sword energy surged in the air. This was not a murderous aura, nor was it sword energy, nor was it an imposing aura. It was a kind of charm that a swordsman could unconsciously emit. This charm was something that even a top swordsman would not be able to completely conceal. To be able to conceal it to such an extent, it was enough to show that these 2 young swordsmen were using all their strength. And this kind of attitude from a fundamental point of view showed a kind of friendliness. It seemed that these 2 Duke Chu were curious about Diwu Qingro's visit, but did not have the slightest hostility. Is Prime Minister Diwu coming in person? I am Chu Fei. Greetings. At the top of the stairs, the young man had a gentle smile on his face. He was neither servile nor overbearing as he calmly raised his hand to salute. He did not appear to be flattering or arrogant. It was as if this was a normal visit and the host was eagerly welcoming him. Chapter 258. Chu Yang smiled and repeatedly said that he didn't dare. He looked over and saw that Diwu Qingro was a man in his 40s. He had long eyebrows and phoenix eyes. He had 3 long strands of beard that floated in front of his chest. His hair was as black as ink. His body seemed to be shrouded in a mysterious veil that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. It made people unable to see through him, but when they saw him they could feel that he was extraordinary. Diwu Qingro's current appearance was more like that of a hermit in the mountains. If one were to look at him like this, no one would be able to imagine that this tranquil and carefree person was the prime minister of a nation. He was an ambitious and ruthless person who controlled millions of troops and controlled the world's situation. He could make clouds and rain with a flip of his hand. Even the enemy could only move between his palms. This was Diwu Qingro. But now his body was full of peace. His eyes were full of grace and compassion. He seemed to be a compassionate man with lofty ideals. He was facing the suffering of the world. He was sighing with heartache. Prime Minister is too polite. Please. Chu Yang stepped aside and extended his hand to welcome the guest. Elder Chu, please. Diwu Qingro asked with a refined smile. Chu Yang and Diwu Qingro walked side by side as he stepped on the stairs. This is... Di Wuqingro looked at Gu Duxing with a smile. Gu Duxing's cold eyes also looked over. A sword flashed in his eyes. Sword energy filled the air. Looking at Di Wuqingro was like looking at a corpse. This was a kind of look in his eyes. It was as if he wanted to slaughter the world with his sword. He had no scruples. Everyone in the world was a dead man in front of his sword. Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian's aura surged violently. Their 4 eyes looked at Gu Duxing fiercely. The other side's indifferent attitude was unbearable for these 2 king-level masters. This was contempt. Whether it was Di Wuqingro's power or the dignity of a king-level master, they couldn't allow such contempt in front of them. The 3 auras suddenly collided. Gu Duxing's face turned pale. His body suddenly leaned back. His eyes became even colder. His sword energy surged out like a violent wave. "This is my elder brother, Chu Nan." Chu Yang was somewhat embarrassed. He coughed and said, "Grandpa Seed, please don't take offense. My eldest brother doesn't like to talk. He cultivates." He looked at Gu Duxing with an inquiring gaze. Gu Duxing nodded and didn't say a word. "He cultivates emotionless sword Dao." Chu Yang's voice was somewhat low. Oh, Di Wuqingro, Jing Menghun, and Yin Wutian suddenly understood. No wonder this guy is as cold as a coffin. He cultivates the emotionless sword way. He couldn't be blamed for this. Thinking this way, he withdrew his aura at the same time. But Gu Duxing didn't withdraw his aura. The sword energy crisscrossed in the closed passageway. On the walls on both sides, there were dozens of crisscrossing sword marks. Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian looked at each other in amazement. How old was the other party? He actually had such an achievement. He was a revered level swordsman, and he used his body as a sword to release sword energy. Such a person was definitely a genius in the sword Dao. However, if such a young man were to cultivate the emotionless sword Dao, although it would be extremely powerful, it would be equivalent to him losing his youth. To a person's life, this was truly a regrettable thing to do. This kind of pity would become an inner demon the more profound it was. Thinking this, Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian looked at each other at the same time. They both saw the gloating look in each other's eyes. Brother Ling cultivates the emotionless sword Dao. We can see this. Jing Menghun was a first-grade king-level expert. But when he looked at Gu Duxing, a second-grade revered swordmaster, he unexpectedly felt that the other party's fighting spirit and sword intent were constantly rising crazily. No matter how powerful his aura was, the other party's sword intent was like an ice-cold needle that was constantly moving forward. It would break through the surface and advance courageously. Jing Menghun had a feeling that this young swordsman's fighting style was absolutely crazy. I would rather my whole body turn into minced meat. But as long as my sword is still there, I can still poke a hole in your body. Facing this young revered swordmaster, Jing Menghun felt as if his back was drenched in sweat. If he could cultivate to the 3rd grade of Sword King with such ruthless sharpness, perhaps a king-level expert like himself would have to run as far away as possible. This had nothing to do with the depth of his primary power. It was a characteristic of the emotionless sword Dao. As long as he used his sword, there would be no return. Jing Menghun could easily kill a 3rd-grade Sword King with his cultivation. But under the opponent's sharp counterattack, he would suffer a sword wound that would never heal. His soul would be damaged. Once it was formed, he would never be able to advance again. Jing Menghun would never do such a thing. Therefore, he asked Chu Yang out of curiosity, "But I don't know if Grand Duke Chu also cultivates the sword?" His voice faintly carried an inquisitive tone, and it was somewhat overbearing. He had been in a superior position for a long time. He had always talked to his subordinates. He had developed a habit of speaking condescendingly. In fact, he was not being disrespectful. But Di Wuqingro couldn't help but frown when he heard this. "You are?" Chu Yang revealed a questioning look as he looked at Jing Menghun. "My surname is Jing. I am the Prime Minister's attendant and bodyguard." Jing Menghun calmly said. "Oh." Chu Yang exhaled. A gentle smile appeared on his face as he said, "Brother Jing is right. I also cultivate the sword. But it's not the ruthless way of the sword. It's..." He hesitated for a moment. It seemed as if he was hesitating whether he should say it or not. Di Wuqingrou's eyes flashed with a trace of light. Isn't this Grand Duke Chu's temper a bit too good? But then he heard Chu Yang say, it's the secular way of the sword. He smiled gently. But he slowly raised his head after he had finished answering the other party's question. Then he slowly said with a warm smile, Brother Jing, this is the first time we've met. So, I'll answer your question on behalf of Di Wuqingrou. Di Wuqingrou had just doubted his good temper. But his bad temper had immediately flared up. Chu Yang looked at Jing Menghun's cold eyes. However, he still had a smile on his face as he calmly said, however, I don't like people interrupting me when I'm talking to someone. If there's a next time, I don't care if you're a king-level expert or an emperor-level expert. I don't care if you're a king-level expert of the Golden Horse Riders Department or a king-level expert of the Silver Donkey Riders Department. Do you understand? His eyes suddenly flashed like a sharp sword as he looked at Jing Menghun. He was a young man, but his body was brimming with a kind of lofty and superior demeanor. It seemed as if he was on the same level as the heavens. His body was at the top of the world. His eyes were filled with disdain. His aura was unhindered. His eyes were cold and sharp. He looked at a king-level master as if he was looking at an ant. He had always referred to himself as I. But he was now full of this Grand Duke. That kind of playboy aura of the top clan of the upper three heavens was suddenly revealed. I'm crazy. My cultivation isn't as good as yours. But I dare to scold you in front of you. I point at your nose and scold you. You have a temper? You've got guts. You dare to speak to me in a condescending tone? I'll crush you to death with a condescending tone. Jing Menghun's face instantly turned purple. His eyes seemed to be spitting fire. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. He took a deep breath and forced himself to lower his head. However, he couldn't help but clench his fists. But he didn't dare to move. The other party was Brother Chu Hu of the upper three heavens. With the strength of the upper three heavens clan, killing a king-level master like him would be as easy as blowing off dust. Moreover, he knew that Di Wuqingrou had come here for an important matter. So, how could he dare to ruin Di Wuqingrou's plan if Di Wuqingrou didn't open his mouth? Forget it. Di Wuqingrou's face was still as gentle as before. He didn't show any dissatisfaction. Menghun, don't talk. Chu Yang had just vented his anger. So he turned his head and faced Di Wuqingrou with a warm and gentle smile. I was too anxious. I couldn't help but discipline your servant on your behalf. Haha, I hope Prime Minister won't blame me. Haha, this is my bad temper since childhood. I can't stand people who don't know etiquette. They don't know who's superior and who doesn't know when to advance or retreat. I've made a fool of myself in front of Prime Minister. Di Wuqingrou calmly said, it's okay. But Duke Chu was a bit rash. But you're right to discipline him. King-level Master Jing isn't my servant. He's my friend for many years. We've always been like brothers. Like brothers. Jing Menghun heard these words. He suddenly felt warm in his heart. He felt warm. The grievances he had suffered a moment ago had disappeared because of these words. Oh. Chu Yang's pupil shrank. He kindly smiled and said, don't tell me. I just scolded Prime Minister's friend? These two people hadn't even sat down yet. But they were already at each other's throats. One was cautiously probing, and the other was going all out to deal with the probing. Chu Lu is an honored guest of the upper three heavens. If I haggle over this matter, it would be rather... Di Wuqingrou smiled and said, it would be rather ungentlemanly. Nothing can be accomplished without rules. Chu Yang also kindly smiled and said, Prime Minister, if you want to deal with people like us, you'd better train your subordinates to be more obedient. Then he laughed heartily and said, but Prime Minister has come here today. So you're my guest. Please, please. I knew early in the morning that Prime Minister was coming. So I specially prepared good tea for Prime Minister. Please don't be polite. Then he straightforwardly let Di Wuqingrou in. King of Hell Chu had won the first round of the clash between two heroes. Di Wuqingrou was at a disadvantage. But he felt somewhat wronged. That was because the other party was completely unreasonable. Di Wuqingrou's performance was perfect. The other party was methodical in the beginning. However, he was temperamental. If he said he was unreasonable, he would be unreasonable. If he said he would turn hostile, he would turn hostile. Even Di Wuqingro felt somewhat aggrieved by this sudden outburst of astonishment. Chapter 259. The reason for this was Jing Menghun's interjection. With Jing Menghun's status in Di Wuqingro's group, he had the right to interject. Not only did he have the right to interject, but he also had the right to make decisions. How could the number 1 king-level master of Golden Horse Riders Department be ordinary? But now, Chu Yang's interjection had allowed Chu Yang to rudely grab hold of him. He had used an extremely unreasonable, arrogant and despotic attitude. He had ruthlessly given Di Wuqingro a show of strength. Di Wuqingro had come to probe. Therefore, Chu Yang would be seen through by Di Wuqingro if he showed any weakness. Therefore, Chu Yang could not show any weakness. On the contrary, he was the Duke of Upper Three Heavens. How honorable was that? How transcendent was that? Di Wuqingro, you are the Prime Minister of a secular country. I have given you a lot of face by meeting you. I don't care if you are an ambitious person or a coward. In my eyes, you are less than a dog's fart. If I want to be angry, I will be angry. If I want to be angry, I will be angry. If I catch a loophole in your subordinates, I will be able to influence your purpose. Although I am rude, I am rude. What can you do about it? Chu Yang's unreasonable behavior this time seemed to be rude and unreasonable. However, his demeanor, bearing, and temperament perfectly displayed the tyrannical power of a super clan of the Upper Three Heavens. Jing Menghun was furious. Di Wuqingro was depressed. But Minister Chu's heart was beating like a drum. After all, he was facing Di Wuqingro. Who would have thought that Di Wuqingro would not be able to see through this? After entering the room, both sides sat down as the host and the guest. However, the harmony that had been there a moment ago had disappeared because of King of Hell Chu's unreasonable provocation. Please, this is the purple crystal tea that I picked from the Purple Cloud Mountain. It's the only one of its kind even in the Upper Three Heavens. Chu Yang politely brought out the teacups. However, there were only 2 seats at the tea table. One was the host and the other was the guest. Obviously, this Duke Chu did not prepare a seat for a servant, let alone enjoy his good tea. Although Jing Menghun and Yin Wutian were sullen, they could only stand behind Di Wuqingro. Good tea. Di Wuqingro took a sip, closed his eyes and savored the aftertaste. After a long time, he opened his eyes and sighed. I haven't drunk this tea for many years. This cup of tea seems to have brought me back to the frivolous past when I was a teenager. Oh? Has Prime Minister drunk this tea before? Chu Yang raised his eyebrows. Di Wuqingro's origin had always been a mystery. Some said that he was an orphan, some said that he was a descendant of a noble, some said that he had mysteriously appeared, but none of the legends could be proven. Di Wuqingro's origin was even more mysterious than King of Hell Chu's facade. However, Chu Yang suddenly became alert when he heard these words today. Could it be that Di Wuqingro's roots are in the Upper Three Heavens? Haha. Di Wuqingro smiled meaningfully and said, Ancestor of the Chu clan. Senior Chu, are you still in good health? Chu Yang said solemnly, God bless you, elder ancestor. Your body is as healthy as before. You've made a breakthrough in your cultivation. Good people have good karma. Di Wuqingro's face revealed a look of reminiscence as the fragrance of the tea lingered in the air. He said, in those days the ancestor of the Chu clan, Senior Chu Bai Shao, used a long sword to gallop unhindered in the Upper Three Heavens. Countless people died under his sword. His illustrious fame and awe-inspiring divine might have left the descendants fascinated and in awe. Prime Minister, I'm afraid you've remembered wrongly. Ancestor did not use a sword back then. Chu Yang frowned, but his face was not worried. Prime Minister, you can't speak carelessly, huh? Di Wuqingro's eyes flashed and said, Did I remember wrongly? Humph. Chu Yang snorted and said, Prime Minister, today I have a good temper. If it were anyone else in the Chu clan, I'm afraid no one would be able to joke with you like this. What a joke. Since Chu Yang planned to pretend to be the Chu clan's patriarch, how could he not ask the blue-clothed man about the Chu clan's affairs? Let's not talk about anything else. Just look at how the blue-clothed man patiently answered Chu Yang's questions that night. It was obvious that Di Wuqingro's probing would not work. Minister Chu asked about the direction of every latrine in the Chu clan. This made the blue-clothed man almost collapse. However, Diwu Qingrou's focus was not on this. Sigh, so much time has passed. I've forgotten many things. But there's one thing that I'm still brooding about. Diwu Qingrou let out a melancholy sigh and said, I remember that I met Big Brother Fei Ling a few times back then. Big Brother Fei Ling's lifelong regret made me wring my hands and sigh. I was depressed all day long. I don't know if it has been resolved. There are so many people. Where can you find it? Chu Yang sighed sadly. Uncle Fei Ling's heart is probably difficult. As he spoke, Chu Yang revealed a relaxed posture that said, I want to hide it but I can't. It showed that even the Chu clan of the upper three heavens had internal conflicts. But his heart was also cold. This guy also knows that the Chu clan lost a child? Diwu Qingrou's expression softened a little. Duke Chu, you came to the lower three heavens for an important matter, right? Diwu Qingrou asked. Important matter? Haha, the so-called important matter, Prime Minister just said it. That's why we're here. Chu Yang said with some resentment, actually, we came out with fourth uncle to play. Oh, fourth Master Chu is in the province now? Diwu Qingrou was startled. Humph, Chu Yang snorted and did not comment. Diwu Qingrou laughed and said, I see. But when we came here we found something interesting. Chu Yang said excitedly, Prime Minister, since you are not an outsider, I will tell you the truth. What is it? I am very interested in that saber and sword. Chu Yang's eyes revealed a hawk-like sharpness. I am determined to get them. Regarding this matter as a local snake, I ask for your help. After a pause, Chu Yang seemed to have made up his mind. As long as Prime Minister helps me get that saber and sword, then I, Chu Fei, can promise Prime Minister one thing. Yes, you understand. Diwu Qingrou felt a headache coming on. Until now, we have not completely confirmed your identity, and you actually made a request first? And you want the saber and sword that are the focus of attention now? Duke Chu, I am much older than you, but I have a different understanding of this matter. Diwu Qingrou said earnestly, as far as I know, this matter is King of Hell Chu's conspiracy. I don't care if he has pubic hair or wool. Anyway, I want that saber and sword. Chu Yang snorted and said, Prime Minister, even if I am a pervert, I can still tell the authenticity of a saber and a sword. I don't have any other meaning. But I am afraid that Duke Chu will be punished when you return to the clan. Diwu Qingrou said warmly, his voice relaxed. Chu Yang immediately realized that he was being a little too hasty. He sat back down and said with a fake smile, if Prime Minister doesn't want to help, then it's fine. We brothers will just try our luck and have some fun. Diwu Qingrou was silent for a moment and said, I will urge people to investigate again. Oh, if it is too troublesome, then there is no need. Chu Yang leaned back and said, if you want to get it, then there is more than one way. Diwu Qingrou felt like a tiger eating the sky with nowhere to go. This Duke Chu in front of him was unexpectedly watertight and impeccable. Could it be that it is really Duke Chu? But why would Duke Chu appear here? The conversation just now seemed ordinary, but Diwu Qingrou used the inside story of the Chu clan, the martial arts of the Chu clan, the regrets of the Chu clan, the 3 levels of seniority, and the rules of the heavenly layer to test him. However, the other party was able to answer his questions fluently. Moreover, every question was followed by a sharp counterattack. Sometimes this Duke Chu answered casually, and Diwu Qingrou was a bit overwhelmed. However, Qingrou came here today to ask Duke Chu about something. Diwu Qingrou said, Duke Chu is standing high, so naturally you can see far. Please enlighten me. Diwu Qingrou's attitude suddenly became very humble. What is it? At present Iron Cloud, Great Zhao and Wuxia are 3 countries. There are many small countries around them. In Duke Chu's opinion, what should be done in such a chaotic situation? In this land of countries, who is the hero? Who is the overlord? Diwu Qingrou sighed and said, for this matter, it can be said that I have exhausted my mind. Chu Yang revealed a look of being asked a question, and looked at Diwu Qingrou with some astonishment. His stance was clear. I've never considered the question you've just asked. Oh, what does Duke Chu mean? Diwu Qingrou humbly asked for advice. This cough. Duke Chu rolled his eyes and thought for a long time. Then he laughed and suddenly leaned back and said, No matter who wins, it has nothing to do with me. Don't you think so? This clearly meant, I can't answer your question and I haven't done any research, so I might as well act shamelessly. Anyway, it has nothing to do with me. You can ask whoever you want. Diwu Qingro was stunned. No matter how the other party answered, he could hear the real meaning behind it. After all, this should be the goal of King of Helchu's life. If it was really King of Helchu, even if it was a lie, Diwu Qingro would not be able to hide it. No one could blaspheme his life's dream. For an adult with a goal, a dream was as important as his first love. All the men in the world who had been hurt by love could scold all the women in the world, but who would dare to say that the woman of his dreams was a prostitute? Even if she was, he would not dare to say it. Just thinking about it would break his heart. If he said it like that, he would hurt his own heart first. But he had never expected that the other party would be so indifferent. Since Prime Minister asked me so many questions, I will also ask you one. Chu Yang asked, Prime Minister, since you are so familiar with Upper Three Heavens and my Chu clan, could it be that Prime Minister also came down from Upper Three Heavens? Diwu Qingro did not speak, but his eyes were deep and he looked at him strangely. Chu Yang knew that something was wrong. He braced himself and asked, Prime Minister, which clan of Upper Three Heavens do you come from? Chapter 260. Chu Yang was startled. Then he scratched his head and said in a childish manner, I really don't have any impression of it. Why? Should I know? The implication was, what kind of big shot are you? Diwu Qingro smiled strangely and shook his head. You shouldn't not know. You shouldn't not know. Chu Yang was stunned. Is this guy's sect extremely famous in the Upper Three Heavens? Is it so famous that even the super aristocratic Chu clan doesn't know about it? But what's the reason for this? Diwu Qingro maintained a meaningful expression. He slowly stood up and said, Yes, Duke. I am very pleased to see you today. If Duke doesn't have any other instructions, I will take my leave. Tea is still warm. Is Duke going back? Dozens of thoughts flashed through Chu Yang's mind at this moment. Could it be that I didn't know his identity was a flaw? That's not right. If not, then Diwu Qingro has no other choice but to retreat in order to advance? Chu Yang's mind was racing, but his face was expressionless. He stood up with a smile and said, Take care, Prime Minister. I won't see you out. He didn't seem to care whether Diwu Qingro left or not. Diwu Qingro chuckled and said, Many things are complicated. I won't disturb Duke Chu. He slowly stood up and looked at Chu Yang with a meaningful look. Duke Chu, I won't see you out when you go back. Here, I wish you a safe journey. Chu Yang said gracefully, Take care, Prime Minister. Diwu Qingro walked out of the room with a smile and went down the stairs accompanied by Jing Menghan and Yin Wu Tian. Chu Yang politely sent him off, but stopped at the top of the stairs and watched Diwu Qingro leave. King of Helchu had fallen into a disadvantageous position in the second confrontation between the two. That was because he couldn't tell whether Diwu Qingro had really seen through the flaw in Chu Yang's words, or if he was just bluffing. Even though Chu Yang's temperament was open-minded, a shadow had been left in his heart. Diwu Qingro walked to the corner of the stairs. Chu Yang was ready to turn back to his room. At this moment, Diwu Qingro suddenly turned around. He glared at Chu Yang, who was about to turn around. Then he shouted in a deep voice, Chu Yang. Chu Yang acted as if he didn't hear anything. He took a step forward and then turned around. He looked at Diwu Qingro and asked, Prime Minister, what are you doing? Diwu Qingro's hawk-like eyes crossed the stairs and stared straight at Chu Yang's face. At this moment, Chu Yang felt a burning pain on his face, as if his face was being burned red by a needle. It's nothing. This old man's eyes were playing tricks on him. Their eyes met. One of them looked innocent and surprised, with a trace of worry. And Diwu Qingro's eyes were inquisitive. After a long time, Diwu Qingro chuckled and went downstairs. Chu Yang made an "oh" sound, and no longer paid any attention to him. He returned to his room. The man in green on the stairs had also quietly disappeared. It was as if he had only seen a blur and nothing had happened. A master. Jing Menghan and Yin Wu Tian glanced at each other. Their backs were dripping with cold sweat. The same thought popped up in their minds. Could it be that this black-clothed man is the guardian of those two youngsters? Chu clan. Before noon, Diwu Qingro left Heaven-Reaching Tower. After coming out of Chu Yang's room, he went to look for three people. Ao Xiayun, Mo Tianyun, and Dong Wu Lei. The reaction of the three people made Diwu Qingro's heart heavy. He didn't even speak on the way. He just frowned and thought about something. Jing Menghun and Yin Wu Tian were somewhat surprised. Although the attitude of these three brothers was ambiguous, the main purpose of today's visit was to see whether or not Chu Yang was king of Hell Chu. In their eyes, this Chu Fei Gong was absolutely not king of Hell Chu. This was already a done deal. No matter how one looked at it, his performance was impeccable. If he wasn't Chu clan's younger brother, how could he know so much about the Chu clan? Even though Jing Menghun had been severely scolded by Chu Yang, he didn't doubt Chu Yang's identity. Prime Minister, what do you think? Jing Menghun carefully asked. They were already on the road and weren't far from the Prime Minister's residence. There were very few people on the road. What do you think? Diwu Qingro glanced at him. This Chu Fei Gong shouldn't be king of Hell Chu. Jing Menghun said with certainty. Yin Wu Tian nodded calmly to express his agreement. It's between the two. Diwu Qingro slowly shook his head. I can't say for sure. But I still think that he may be king of Hell Chu's incarnation. Jing Menghun and Yin Wu Tian felt a little dizzy. The matter was already so clear. Why was Diwu Qingro still holding on to it? If king of Hell Chu was really the duke of a super clan of the upper three heavens, then what was the point of playing around? What was the point of playing around? What if he angered the Chu clan by holding on to it like this? What should he do? Let's wait and see. It won't be too late for me to break the Bankai when King of Hell Chu makes his move. Diwu Qingro obviously had the same concerns. Before he had set off, he was 80% sure that this Chu Fei Gong was King of Hell Chu. But after they had met and left, this certainty had dropped to a certain level. Diwu Qingro also felt somewhat uneasy. Diwu Qingro's guess had dropped again when he had seen the black-clothed man. It had become half and half. The remaining half was what Diwu Qingro had said before he left. Did he have to know Diwu Qingro's identity after coming down from the upper three heavens? Even Diwu Qingro himself felt that this statement was untenable. However, not knowing Chu Yang's identity was always somewhat suspicious. The remaining 40% was purely Diwu Qingro's intuition. Although this Chu Fei Gong did not show any hostility towards him, deep in Diwu Qingro's heart, he had a stubborn intuition. This is King of Hell Chu. This feeling did not make any sense. But he was certain. From tonight onwards, we will use our influence on the people we can't catch. Diwu Qingro said slowly. King-level Master Yin will be in charge of this matter. King-level Master Jing, you have to carefully observe tonight's movements. Diwu Qingro's eyes had a deep sense of exhaustion. Tonight, it is fine if the saber and the sword do not appear. But once they appear, I am afraid it will be a terrible bloody storm. Jing Menghun cautiously agreed. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was night again. As night fell, the three heavenly dukes in the prefecture capital all opened their eyes wide and focused. On the roof of Heaven-Reaching Tower, there were several people whose sleeves were fluttering in the wind. They stared at the flickering lights in the dark night and did not move. In the city, almost all of the buildings with high vantage points had people guarding them. Moreover, these places were basically occupied by king-level masters. But tonight it was very quiet. Even the fights between Jianghu people had decreased a lot. Ask the Heaven Sword did not appear. Nor did Underworld Saber. Of course, Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword were also nowhere to be seen. Another day passed. On the afternoon of the second day, someone suddenly discovered the location of Ask the Heaven Sword. After a short period of time, the person holding Ask the Heaven Sword successfully broke out of the encirclement and disappeared. All the king-level masters had made a wasted trip. On the night of the second day, someone discovered Ask the Heaven Sword being chased. So after another fight, they escaped again. In a few days and nights, this kind of situation happened more than 20 times. It was said that the person holding Ask the Heaven Sword and Underworld Saber was covered in wounds and was exhausted from running for his life. Dozens of king-level masters were like big birds, running here and there. Everyone had a belly full of anger and was about to explode. Finally, a huge commotion began on the night of the fifth day. On the night of the full moon in the sky, the curtains were drawn. When the full moon rose to the middle of the sky from Continent City below, two rays of light seemed to be very far away, but suddenly rose up. The sun and moon shining together appeared again. Chapter 261. The full moon rose into the sky above everyone's head, emitting a bright and clear radiance that shrouded the blue dome of heaven and spilled over the earth. The experts who had been exhausted for several days were also somewhat tired. Everyone was guessing, could it be that those two fellows were hiding in a mouse hole? Why couldn't they find them even after such a great search? But at this time, a dumbstruck guy suddenly pointed to the sky and shouted himself hoarse. All the absent-minded experts looked up and suddenly stood up with a bang. Above their heads there were two full moons. One was the sun. As for the other two, although they were not as radiant as the real sun and moon, they were still real existences. Sun and moon shining together. Sunlight saber, moonlight sword. They appeared. Everyone flew up to the sky at the same time. More than 40 crowns glittered in the sky, dazzling the eyes. Near and far king-level experts were rushing over one after another, and one after another, they propped up their own energy shields. Two directions, one in the east and the other in the west. Then the halo of sunlight saber began to move, woo. With a loud roar, the expert soared up and rushed toward that direction. The halo of moonlight sword flickered and immediately disappeared. It seemed that the owner of moonlight sword had discovered the abnormality and decisively returned the sword to its sheath. But sunlight saber was still flashing. For some unknown reason, the halo of sunlight saber was still there even after the disappearance of moonlight sword. But now no one was thinking about this problem. Existence? Existence is leading us to seize it. The light beam on the ground was running in a panic. High up in the sky, the king-level experts who were chasing closely behind had fanatical brilliance in their eyes. Now that sunlight saber had appeared, there was no need to think about hiding it. The most important thing now was to see who among the dozens of king-level experts would have the strength to take the lead. There were many people and even more experts, but there was only one sunlight saber. Many people were calculating their own allies and enemies, as well as the most powerful person to seize it. Suddenly, with a xiao sound, two white silhouettes appeared from below like shooting stars chasing after the moon. Everyone! This saber I Chu Mao want it! A clear and bright voice roared, as if announcing the ownership of the saber. Chu Mao? Fuck, who do you think you are? You actually want it? All the king-level experts were furious. Everyone's faces were covered anyway, so no one knew who they were. Why would they care about the upper three heavens or the lower three heavens under such circumstances? However, the two white shadows were very close to sunlight saber. All the masters sped up and rushed over as if their lives depended on it. Jing Menghun sighed helplessly in the distant sky. As expected, it was just as the Prime Minister had guessed. The direction in which the circle of light was moving was the Imperial Palace. And it was already very close to the palace. The Great Zhao Imperial Palace was the symbol of Great Zhao's imperial power. This was also the most stubborn force against Diwu Qingro. And they were all gathered here. Although the royalists had been suppressed by Diwu Qingro all these years, they could not be eradicated. The imperial city had become their last bastion. In Great Zhao's imperial city, experts were as numerous as clouds. The security here far exceeded that of the Iron Cloud Imperial Palace. However, this so-called experts as numerous as the clouds was only a relative term. When dealing with ordinary people of the Jianghu, it could be said that experts were as common as clouds. However, when compared to the dozens of king-level experts from the upper three heavens, it was not as common as clouds. It was like a herd of pigs and sheep. The Great Zhao Imperial Palace reacted quickly. The first thing they did was to rain down arrows like a waterfall. Then dozens of people jumped out and shouted, "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the Imperial Palace? Kill without mercy." Then, more people rushed out from the top of the Imperial Palace's walls. The blade was as fast as lightning, and actually carried the radiance of the full moon as it whistled through the air. Laughing maniacally, it collided with the arrows that filled the sky. Pung 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 pung. A few of the Imperial guards were sent flying into the air like rubber balls. following which, the figure riding the full moon blade let out a rumbling sound, followed by a cry of a wood dog ant. Dog ant! His excited cries entered the imperial palace without any fear. A white shadow followed closely behind. It also rushed in like lightning. The people in the distance looked at him warmly. It was the young master of the Chu clan from the upper three heavens, Chu Fei. However, Chu Yang was so happy that he almost fell from the sky when he heard GMO call out to his dog ant. He still did not understand what GMO meant by dog ant. The imperial palace was immediately alarmed. Stop! Stop! The commander of the imperial palace's guards shouted, "Stop them! Kill without mercy!" He had already seen many people rushing over from the distance. Jing Menghun sighed and closed his eyes. He thought, "It would have been better if you didn't say this. Once you say kill without mercy, the imperial palace will really turn into ruins." Sure enough, the people in the imperial palace did not hesitate at all under the command of the imperial palace's guards. They rushed to the top of the imperial palace's magnificent walls. Then, with a rumbling sound, the outer walls of the imperial palace collapsed. These people were all king-level experts of the upper three heavens. The situation was urgent. If they were late, they would lose the treasured saber that was related to the prosperity of their clans. Why would they care about the imperial palace of the lower three heavens? Naturally, it was as if they were walking on flat ground. They roared and rushed forward. Almost at the moment of contact, the imperial palace's guards exploded with blood. Then dozens of king-level experts rushed in like meteors. They entered the imperial palace without any hesitation. Then the Jianghu army rushed in like a tsunami. Suddenly, there were shrill screams, the sound of the alarm horn, the sound of the palace collapsing, the sound of fighting, and the sound of swords clashing. It was a mess. Dust and smoke billowed. Jing Menghun hung his head sadly in the distance. It's over. There was no way to stop this chaos. Diwu Qingro had always believed that this was King of Hell Chu's evil plan. Even when the upper three heavens clans believed that it was Sunlight Saber and Moonlight Sword, Diwu Qingro still believed that this was King of Hell Chu's plot. But at that time it was already uncontrollable. It was just like when Chu Yang had found out that Diwu Qingro was using him to stir up trouble and gather people. He had been helpless and at a loss of what to do. Diwu Qingro knew that this was King of Hell Chu's plot, but he could only watch. He did not know where King of Hell Chu was, nor did he know where the saber and the sword were. He knew that things would develop like this, but he was powerless to stop it. For someone like Diwu Qingro, who was used to being in control, this was the most depressing thing. 7 days ago, King of Hell Chu had suffered such a grievance. Now the wheel of fortune had turned, and it was finally Diwu Qingro's turn to taste it. These days Diwu Qingro had been thinking about where King of Hell Chu would trigger this chaos. After thinking for a long time, he decided on the Imperial Palace and Golden Horse Riders Department. For this matter, Diwu Qingro let Jing Menghun use 3 days and 3 nights to make arrangements for Golden Horse Riders Department. Those who should be evacuated were evacuated. Those who should be evacuated were evacuated. A group of experts also left their original residence. At present, Golden Horse Riders Department, except for a few people who were left behind to guard the recently captured Jianghu people, the rest were gone. Diwu Qingro also wanted to evacuate these people, but he really did not have enough time. Moreover, there was no place to receive them. These people were still unruly. If there was a mutiny, the loss would be too great. Diwu Qingro could not bear such an accident. Therefore, he had no choice but to leave them here. Now that Jing Menghun looked at the chaos in the Imperial Palace, he finally felt relieved. At least the Imperial Palace was in chaos, and Golden Horse Riders Department would not be in chaos. This was a great fortune in an unfortunate situation. It was not that Diwu Qingro did not inform the Imperial Palace to be on guard. No matter how lawless he was still a minister of great Zhao in name. He even transferred people to help the Imperial Palace evacuate. However, Diwu Qingro's good intentions were ruthlessly rejected by the emperor. Moreover, it was said that the emperor sneered at that time. Diwu Qingro, do you really think I am stupid? Attack the Imperial Palace? Humph, as long as Diwu Qingro does not attack the Imperial Palace, Is there anyone else in this world who is so crazy? When the messenger reported, Diwu Qingro let out a long sigh. He had given up on the imperial palace. He knew that King of Helchu would make a move. Moreover, he had calculated it. If there was a riot in Golden Horse Riders Department, the experts of Golden Horse Riders Department could quickly evacuate. Even if there was a riot, it would not be too big. However, the imperial palace could not be moved. The people in the imperial palace were also weak. The imperial palace was the heart of a nation. Since King of Helchu had already caused a huge riot, if he let go of a place like the imperial palace, then King of Helchu would not be King of Helchu. However, the imperial palace did not trust Diwu Qingro. They mercilessly rejected Diwu Qingro's good intentions. Diwu Qingro could only give up on this effort. In fact, he was just making a gesture. The imperial palace was already on fire. The flames were so bright that half the sky was red. The surrounding troops came to calm the chaos. Minister Chu, dressed in white, was running back and forth in the imperial palace. Rather than saying that he was here to fight for Sunlight Saber, it was better to say that he was here to cover for GMO. Once the owner of Sunlight Saber was in danger, Duke Chu would descend from the sky and rush into the battle. However, once he rushed in, the king-level leaders would be restrained and unable to act freely. Who would dare to kill Duke Chu of Upper Three Heavens in front of so many people? Wouldn't that be courting death? There were countless witnesses here. Thus Duke Chu was awe-inspiring. Wherever he went there was no one. Moving left and right, the owner of Sunlight Saber would find time to control the saber and say in a strange voice, "Dog Ant, I am running away from Upper Three Heavens." Thus, they began to chase after him again. Too dark. I can't see anything. Motherfucker, wouldn't it be much better if we set it on fire? Duke Chu yelled. The king-level leaders immediately realized that it was too difficult to find someone in this dark place. Even though Duke Chu was a troublemaker, his words were very reasonable. No one knew who started it, but everyone started a fire at the same time. A king-level leader somehow found the imperial palace's oil storage. Barrels of oil, no matter what kind of oil it was, were thrown into the fire like dumplings. Puff puff puff, boom boom boom. Chapter 262. The fire in the palace was so bright that it was as bright as day. But the thick smoke, to put it bluntly, could be seen for hundreds of miles. In the city, it was as if a nation had been destroyed. Young Master Jiju was dragged out of bed by a king-level master. He rushed to the palace with sleepy eyes. The king-level expert had opened the way. So everything went smoothly. It wasn't easy for them to enter the battle circle. So they were about to unwillingly start the fight. However, they didn't expect that they would suddenly hear someone say, "Awoo! Dog Ant! Motherfucker!" Jiju was stunned. He suddenly cursed and spat. Then he turned around and left. Young Master! Young Master! The three king-level masters were puzzled. They hurriedly chased after him. Everyone was extremely depressed. This Grand Duke was too unambitious. He just came to take a look and left? Didn't he see that the other clans were fighting until their eyes were red? The Ji clan will withdraw from this fight. Jiju glared fiercely and roared in a low voice, "Whoever is disobedient, get lost." After he finished speaking, he turned around and rushed back. On the way he cursed, "Motherfucker! Motherfucker! 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 Motherfucker!" Just as he left the palace, he bumped into Luo Kuwu. "Where are you going?" "I'm going back to sleep." "Why do you care?" Jiju rolled his eyes. Luo Kuwu was puzzled. Going back to sleep? Going back to sleep at this time? Get out of the way. A good dog doesn't block the way. Young Master Jiju was in a bad mood. He felt that he had been tricked. "Who are you scolding?" Luo Kuwu glared and was about to fly into a rage. However, he was surrounded by the king-level masters of the clan. He only had time to say, "Jiju, you motherfucker, remember this. This time I will remember you. This idiot." Jiju spat in disdain. His saliva was spat out. Behind him, young Master Luo Kuwu and the others had already rushed into the thick smoke and fire. With a loud rumble, the main hall of the palace collapsed. No one knew who did it, but the main hall of the palace collapsed. GMO was finally unable to do anything. In fact, he was already exhausted. Under the pursuit of a group of sovereigns, it was not easy for him to persist until now. Unfortunately, the person he was waiting for hadn't arrived yet. He could only persevere. GMO jumped out of the fire and was overjoyed when he saw it. Wahaha, he's here. He saw that Mo Tianyun was leading the experts of his clan to search this place from a short distance away. He was very handsome. Over there. Aoxiayun arrived with the king-level experts of the Ao clan. There were also several sovereigns from other clans rushing over like shooting stars. It was truly an opportunity bestowed by the heavens today. Spare me. Spare my life. I don't want this saber anymore. GMO suddenly screamed and jumped out. Mo Tianyun, Aoxiayun, Dongwu Lei, Xie Danqiong, and the others looked towards them as soon as they came out. Their eyes revealed a fiery radiance. Here you go. Not waiting for anyone to answer, GMO had already thrown out his hand blade. Then he turned around and fled. But who cared about him now? Everyone's eyes were attracted to the saber that was flying through the air. The sunlight saber emitted a dazzling light under the illumination of the fire. Everyone's eyes were burning as they flew along with the saber. It was not clear whether it was intentional or not, but sunlight saber flew towards Mo Tianyun. Impudent. Mine. Charge. Motherfucker. Snatch it for me. This sentence was shouted by Li Xiongtu, the young master who had just arrived. His voice was so excited that it changed pitch. Kill. Mo Tianyun was overjoyed. Aoxiayun was shocked. Xie Danqiong's eyes flashed. Dongwu Lei held the saber hilt. Luoku Wu shouted and rushed forward. A king-level expert of the Mo clan jumped out in joy and reached out to grab the saber flying towards him. Mo Tianyun was already prepared. As soon as the saber was in his hand, he would immediately turn around and leave. He would not train anymore and return to Ping Three Heavens. Mo Tianyun had never thought that he would be able to get both the saber and the sword at this moment. But as long as he had Sunlight Saber, it meant that he had half the secret of becoming a martial saint. As for the other half, it could be a scheme, an exchange, or an alliance. He had plenty of methods. Stop! Stop him! Loud shouts were heard. Countless hidden weapons flew towards the Mo clan people at the same time. The hidden weapons were exploding. 3 king-level experts rushed out at the same time. A powerful energy storm was formed in an instant. The reaction of the 3 king-level experts could be said to be extremely fast and accurate at this critical moment. The sword and saber flashed at the same time and knocked the projectile to the side. The other person didn't care about his life anymore. He used his chi to protect his body and rushed towards the projectile and sunlight saber. Mo Tianyun's face showed a proud smile. They were the closest. At this moment, even if an immortal came, he would not be able to stop the Mo clan people from getting the saber first. It was at this moment that something inconceivable happened. The saber, which was flying at high speed in the air, suddenly stopped. It stopped in the air. Then it suddenly flew back. Motherfucker! There are threads on the saber. Mo Tianyun cursed in a very rare fashion. His handsome face turned ferocious as he cursed loudly. This bastard! This bastard! This kind of treasure was about to be in his hands, but he missed it? Young Master Mo was about to collapse. At this moment, a silver coin flashed. Sunlight Saber, which was flying back at high speed, made a bang sound and fell from the sky. Aoxiayun still had a few copper coins left in his hand. Just now, he used a copper coin to break the threads on the saber. Now the saber was slowly falling. And the place where it fell was between the Ao clan and the Mo clan. The king-level experts of the Ao clan and the Mo clan rushed forward like wolves and tigers. At this moment there was a sudden bang. At the place where Sunlight Saber was about to fall, something exploded. A black fog with a sweet smell spread out. In an instant, it covered an area of 3 feet. The moment the black fog rose, Sunlight Saber finally fell to the ground with a bang sound. In the area covered by the black fog, a voice said with a smile, "Everyone be careful. This is the bone-eroding bewitching fragrance. Once you touch it, your bones will turn into black water. Don't blame me for not warning you." All the experts stopped at the same time. The fastest king-level expert of the Mo clan had already extended his hand into the black fog. He hastily retracted his hand, but his right palm had already turned jet black. Black water was flowing out from the tip of his fingers. It was so sore and itchy that he could not help but cry out, "Little poisonous thing!" Mo Tianyun and Ao Huayun roared at the same time. Their eyes were sharp as they turned their heads to look. A young man in black with a shy smile appeared at the edge of the circle. Behind him were two old men in black. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I already told you, but you still put your hand in." The young man in black said regretfully, This hand is about to turn into black water. What should I do? This is the hand of a king-level master." This young man looked weak and shy, but when he did things, he was extremely ruthless. Moreover, he didn't show any mercy at all. "Take out the antidote!" Mo Tianyun shouted angrily. The right hand of the king-level master of the Mo clan had already turned black and swollen. The black water was also flowing out faster and faster from his fingertips. Even with the power of a king-level master, he had no resistance against this poison. And now the saber was surrounded by this poison. "Oh, I also want to take out the antidote, but I am greedy and want the saber." The black-robed youngster looked at Mo Tianyun in grief. "My strength is too weak. Brother Mo, please lend me a hand, okay?" Mo Tianyun almost fainted from anger. However, his eyes revealed an extremely conflicted expression. As long as he got Sunlight Saber, it would be time for the Mo clan to soar. But the injured king-level master in front of him was an important expert of the Mo clan. If he did not save him, wouldn't he be disappointed? "Brother Mo, could it be that this broken saber is more important than the life of a king-level master of your clan?" The young man in black blinked and said. The muscles on Mo Tianyun's face twitched. His expression changed a dozen times in an instant. In the dark, Chu Yang's attention was focused on the black-robed youth. Looking at this guy's carefree and ruthless appearance, Chu Yang had already come to a conclusion in his heart. It seems that this guy is the future one of the 12 influential figures of the Three Heavens Poison Spirit. He looked at the saber on the ground. At this moment, the black fog was gradually thinning. It was still the closest to the Mo clan. He would be able to grab it with a single leap. Mo Tianyun's eyes flashed with a struggling expression. Suddenly, he yelled with anger, "Uncle Changgue, I have let you down today. For the sake of the Mo clan, I order you to take Sunlight Saber." The injured king-level master was the Mo clan's king-level master, Mo Changgue. According to seniority, he was Mo Tianyun's uncle. Ao Xieyun's eyes showed a vigilant expression. Mo Tianyun's ruthlessness was on full display at this moment. For the sake of the Mo clan, for the sake of the Mo clan, for the sake of the Mo clan, for the sake of the Mo clan. Mo Changgue's eyes flashed with sadness. He knew that the other party used poison to threaten him to get the Mo clan's help. Since Mo Tianyun had already rejected the other party's offer, it meant that his life was already gone. Chapter 263. Before he could finish his sentence, Mo Changgue's eyes turned into two black holes. His mouth was full of rotten white teeth. His whole body turned into a black liquid. This bone-eroding poison fog was so tyrannical. He screamed and gathered the last of his strength into his left hand. He slapped his own forehead. Kacha! Blood splattered everywhere and turned into a black fog. His whole body fell down. The Mo clan had just started the fight, and already lost a king-level master. Mo Tianyun jumped up and took out a snow-white beast's skin. He wrapped it around the incoming Sunlight Saber and said without batting an eyelid, "Charge out." He did not even look at his uncle's body that was turning into black liquid. Ao Xieyun roared, "Stop the people of the Mo clan." Xiedan Xiong, Li Xiong too, and the others shouted. Young Poison Spirit gritted his teeth and waved his hand. The two old men behind him also took out their sabers and swords. Sure from the various great clans rushed towards the Mo clan's people. "Gu Yinyang! Gu Yinyu! Help me stop them!" Mo Tianyun screamed and rushed out without a care. He shouted, "The secret of Sunlight Saber. I, Mo Tianyun, promise that the Gu clan will have a share. I, Mo Tianyun, swear to the heavens that if I go against it, the heavens will abandon me. In front of so many people, Emo Tianyun swore an oath in order to get Sunlight Saber. Gu Yinyang and Gu Yinyang became spirited. Moreover, the two clans were allies to begin with. They would help each other advance and retreat together. Moreover, there would be such a huge benefit. So, the two of them would kill Gu Duxing first if they were to obtain this benefit. Then the two brothers would divide the country equally. Gu Duxing's talent was extraordinary. Leaving him alive would be a big problem in the future. The two brothers seemed to have eaten an aphrodisiac. They screamed, "Stop them!" Then they rushed forward. The two king-level masters of the Gu clan had bitter expressions on their faces. "You two idiots! Why did you let Emo Tianyun use the Gu clan until it became dregs?" In an instant, the battle between the king-level masters erupted like a volcano. Without any warning, it became a mess. And it wasn't just one or two but dozens of them. At this moment, Great Zhao's imperial palace had truly become an imperial palace. Looking at the sky, there were a total of 50 crowns shining brightly. He was moving. He was risking his life. In the history of the lower three heavens, which kingdom's imperial palace could have such a grand scene? Only Great Zhao. Only Great Zhao. After this battle, the Great Zhao kingdom would be immortalized in the history of the lower three heavens. Even though the royal family of Great Zhao wanted to cry but had no tears, but this was also a kind of glory, right? At the end of this affair, when the curtain fell on the struggle for hegemony between the two countries, a famous poet wrote a poem about what had happened that night, on a cold winter night with a full moon. The stars rest together. The saber tilted to cause chaos. All the princes congregate. Corpses piled up like mountains. Blood flowed like the sea. A fist rushed towards the heavens. One sword she bullfighting, thrones were everywhere. Wu Zun was inferior to a dog. Take a look at the broken bones and flesh. All of them could be conferred the title of Marquis. The two countries came to war. They both attacked and defended each other. The universe overturned itself. There was only autumn in the 4 seasons. Great Zhao's hegemony withered. Diwu is too gentle. The rise and fall of ancient times. All in the hands of the king of hell. Cough cough, so wet so wet. At this moment, the Great Zhao royal palace was bustling with noise and excitement. GMO had already completed his mission, but he was also exhausted. He pointed towards a direction, and then GMO Butong appeared like a ghost. He carried GMO on his back and ran him. From this moment on, the two of them would officially leave the lower three heavens. Chu Yang hid in the shadows and watched the two of them leave. His eyes were full of emotions. "Thank you, my brothers. If not for you, I would have suffered a crushing defeat in this chaotic place. We will meet again in the upper three heavens. At that time we will fight side by side." The so-called sunlight saber had already been used. Chu Yang nimbly changed out of his white clothes and put on a black mask. Under the mask there was even a wisp of beard. Just by looking at this masked man he should not be young. Now was the best time to fish in troubled waters. This opportunity was not to be missed. Emo Tianyun, would he die here? Today, could he give Gu Duxing a big gift? Chu Yang was eager to try. The king-level experts of the Gu clan were already struggling left and right. And the king-level experts of the Mo clan were rushing left and right. But they were still blocked. King-level masters of more than 20 great clans were all gathered here. What chance did they have to escape? Emo Tianyun continued to use his bow to lure, split up, sneak attack and plot. But he still could not get out. Because in the end, the one who blocked his way was Ao Xiayun, who he knew very well. When these two rivals met, Emo Tianyun immediately shut up. No matter what he said to this guy, it was like playing the lute to a cow. He would not believe him. So there was no need to waste time and effort. Emo Tianyun, leave sunlight saber. Ao Xiayun said indifferently. Although his voice wasn't loud, it was arrogant and bossy. It was as if he was commanding someone from a higher position. If it were you, would you stay? Emo Tianyun snorted. How many king-level masters does your Mo clan have? Ao Xiayun snorted coldly. In front of so many people, no one dares to kill a clan heir like you and me. This is true. However, your clan's masters are not included. If they die, they will die for nothing. If they all die, do you think you can keep sunlight saber? Whether I can keep it or not, I will have to try to know. Mo Tianyun said coldly. Aosia Yun, do you think these people are with you? Which one of them does not want Sunlight Saber? Even if it is in your hands, would it not be a fight? Then why don't you just shift the blame to me? Aosia Yun smiled. Humph. You are not worthy. Mo Tianyun rolled his eyes. Shift the blame to you? Who would shift the blame to you unless they were at the end of their rope? Suddenly a scream came from the field. A king-level master of the Gu clan suddenly fell down. On his chest, a beautiful viburnum flower bloomed. Outside the field, Xie Danqiong, who had been watching the fight, was pale. He gasped for breath. Just now, 2 king-level masters of the Gu clan had surrounded a king-level master of the Xie clan. The situation was not good. If there was an opening here, the Mo clan could follow the Gu clan and rush out. Therefore, Xie Danqiong used all his strength and shot out his own secret weapon. Viburnum flower. When the viburnum flower comes out, 100 flowers go out. With Xie Danqiong's current strength, he could only use one attack. But it was this one attack that destroyed a king-level master. The remaining king-level master of the Gu clan screamed like a madman. He abandoned his position to protect the 2 dukes. He roared and cursed as he flew towards Xie Danqiong on his sword. The 2 king-level masters of the Xie clan jumped up at the same time and blocked in the air. At this moment, Aosia Yun, Li Xiongtu, and Xie Danqiong all felt a sense of danger. They could not help but look up. Gu Yanyang and Gu Yanyu were still yelling, "Kill him! Kill him!" A sharp sword wind suddenly appeared. This sword seemed to carry with it an ancient desolation. Millions of cold lights flashed in the cold night sky. A black shadow wearing black clothes and a black mask appeared. Under the black mask, there was a wisp of beard fluttering in the wind. But this black shadow carried with it an unstoppable cold light, and suddenly rushed out from the fire. Rushed out from the fire that soared to the sky. A sword faintly visible in his hand, transformed into a dragon that soared through the clouds. Rushed into the crowd. Wherever this sword went, even a king-level master would feel cold all over. Everyone had a feeling. This sword absolutely did not belong to the human world. This was a sword from the heavens. A sword from the demons. A sword from the underworld. Even if there was a mountain in front of this sword would still be able to cut it into pieces. Everyone was shocked. The king-level masters who were in the middle of a fierce battle could not help but dodge. Millions of cold lights, carrying with them an aura that could devour the heavens, rushed in. Unimpeded, it rushed over the heads of the 13 king-level masters. Then with a flash of blood, the cold light suddenly flashed in the air like a bolt of lightning. It slanted into the sky, turned in the air, and disappeared like a meteor. This sword from the beginning to the end only took a short time, not even enough to blink an eye. The sword light was far away, but the chill on everyone's body was not yet gone. Who would be able to execute such a sword move? Who could block it? There was no lack of king-level masters among the experts present. But now, even king-level masters were sweating profusely. Everyone closed their eyes to recall this sword, and a feeling of powerlessness rose in their hearts. If the target of this sword had been me, I wouldn't have been able to dodge it. Only 3 necks would have been waiting to be slaughtered. Not good. Aosia Yun shouted, "Whose sword is it?" Everyone suddenly woke up from a dream. This sword had suddenly appeared, and was not without a purpose. But who was its target? All the king-level masters were shocked, and looked at the young master they were protecting. But they felt relieved after a glance. The young master is fine. But at this time, young master, young master, what happened to you? A mournful voice echoed. Everyone's body shook, and they looked in the direction of the voice. They saw that the only remaining king-level master of the Gu clan was crying out in grief and indignation. Suddenly, he raised his head and tragically roared, "Heavens! How can this be?" In front of him, the 2 brothers, Gu Yanyang and Gu Yanyu, were standing there like wooden chickens. Their eyes were ashen and filled with disbelief. But their throats were spurting out thin lines of blood like fountains. This sword had killed 2 people at the same time. The 2 young masters of the Gu clan. The 2 heirs of the Gu clan. There were only 2 of them. After this sword, it could be said that the Gu clan had no more descendants. Mo Tianyun looked at the king-level master of the Gu clan, who was screaming in pain. His body involuntarily trembled, and his eyes were filled with fear. Everyone was dumbstruck. This bow and sword came like thunder and left like lightning. Everyone only had time to see a black-clothed and masked figure. They couldn't even see the figure clearly. The only impression they had was the fluttering beard under the mask. Where could they find the culprit? Chu Yang had already left the royal palace. After releasing this sword, he immediately left. No matter what happened here, it had nothing to do with him. This sword was, one ray of cold light pierces 10,000 fathoms. Chapter 264. It was not that Chu Yang did not want to kill Mo Tianyun, but Mo Tianyun had a king-level master protecting him. This sword relied on its sharpness. As long as it was blocked, it would return empty-handed. With Chu Yang's current strength, he could not break through to the point where he could kill a king-level master and Mo Tianyun. Also, if he did not succeed, he would face the danger of being left behind. There were dozens of king-level masters present, and Chu Yang only had the strength for one attack. If he was left behind, then it would all be over. Of course, Chu Yang had to choose something he was 100% sure of. Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyang's royal guards had one dead and one separated. There was no one more suitable targets than these two. He did not have the confidence to kill Mo Tianyun, so he decided to give Gu Duxing a big present. Kill Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu. One sword strike like thunder. One sword strike complete. He immediately retreated. Even after he had retreated for a long time, the place was still silent. The crackling sounds of the flames all around made the place even more noisy. Gu Yenyang and Gu Yenyu did not say a word from beginning to end. Their throats gurgled as they looked in front of them in disbelief. Then they slowly fell down facing the sky. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they looked up at the sky. Frozen. Even in death, the two of them had never imagined that they would be killed by an assassin in such a place where there was absolutely no danger at all. Shouldn't they be fighting for Sunlight Saber? Shouldn't they be paying attention to Mo Tianyun and Aosiayun? Shouldn't they be? How could this be? How could this be? The two bodies fell down with a loud bang. Eternal darkness covered all their questions. The king-level master of the Gu clan stood there in a daze. In that moment he felt like he was in a nightmare. For people came from the Gu clan, 2 dukes and 2 king-level masters. But in the blink of an eye, the other king-level master was killed by Xie Danqiong on the spot. And the other 2 dukes were killed in less than a second after the death of the king-level master. She was the only one left. Mo Tianyun and Aosiayun looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. The terror of this sword caused the two of them to feel a chill in their hearts. The two of them thought, if I didn't have any guards by my side and had to face the enemy's attack like Gu Yenyang and the rest, what would happen to me? Thinking of this, a chill ran down his spine. That king-level expert of the Gu clan ferociously stamped his feet. Then he stooped down and piled up the 3 corpses one by one. He then carried them on his shoulder. Then he looked at Xie Danqiong with hatred in his eyes. Then he didn't say a word and walked out in large strides. Go back. Take his brother's bones, take his young master's body and return. I guarantee that everyone will get a copy of The Secret of the Saber, as long as you stand on the sidelines and let me take it. Tu Qianhao strode forward and laughed loudly. Get out of my way. This saber belongs to me, Li Xiongtu. Li Xiongtu fiercely rushed in with his curly beard. He extended his hand to grab the leather package in Mo Tianyun's hand. Mo Tianyun roared. He shook his hand and a colorful chain came out of his sleeve. It made a bang sound in the air and went towards Li Xiongtu like a thunderbolt. The 2 king-level experts of the Mo clan attacked at the same time. The 2 king-level experts of the Li clan roared like thunder and rushed forward. Xie Danqiong waved his hand and the Xie clan's experts also rushed forward. Aosiayun heaved a long sigh and shouted, "Grab it!" The 3 Ao clan's experts behind him also rushed forward. Tu Qianhao laughed out loud and said, "Lively! Extremely lively!" He waved his hand, and the 2 clan also joined the battle. The other big clans also joined in one after another. They couldn't tell who their opponents were and started to fight. The young poison spirit stood far away from the battle and looked at the scene. His eyes were like two poisonous snakes, coldly looking back and forth. The sound of horses' hooves shook the sky. The great Zhao's army had arrived. The sound of fighting echoed from the periphery. The people of Jiang who had already started to fight with the army. A thunderous shout was heard, "Everyone inside, stop! Otherwise you will be killed." The two old king-level experts behind Poison Spirit laughed out loud. They went forward and said disdainfully, "The 10 clans of the 3 heavens are doing something here. Anyone who dares to obstruct will be killed without mercy." The leading general was stunned. He looked at the dozens of dazzling crowns in the sky and was speechless for a long time. At this moment, a crown appeared in the sky from afar and shouted, "Prime Minister Diwu has ordered the army to retreat quickly. Everything here will be decided by the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Diwu will bear all the consequences." It was the 4th king-level master of Golden Horse Riders Hall, Yin Wu Tian. With such a guarantee, the people inside fought even more recklessly. Mo Tianyun became more and more embarrassed. Seeing that the treasured saber was about to be lost, he suddenly screamed and threw the saber into the air. He shouted, "Whoever has the ability can take it." Ao Xieyun frowned. Sunlight saber spun in the air and rose straight up. Mo Tianyun's throw was very big. He threw the saber dozens of feet high. Everyone stopped at the same time. Sunlight saber began to fall. 40 or 50 figures jumped up at the same time. They rose into the air and fought with each other. It was extremely brilliant. The saber was about to fall, but the winner had not been decided yet. A king-level master shouted and suddenly struck Xiang Yan with his palm. Chapter 265. But Mo Tianyun's words were very popular. Most people had the same thought. Since Mo Tianyun suggested it, why would he suggest it if he didn't have control over himself? Many people clamored. "I think it's feasible." Li Xiongtu shouted and looked around. "In my opinion, there is no need for the alliances to send out representatives. Let the aristocratic families fight one by one. The winner will get Sunlight Saber. What do you think?" Everyone present was the first duke of each aristocratic family, the successor of the sun. Every one of them had their eyes on the top of their heads and thought highly of themselves. Who would admit that they were inferior to others? Li Xiongtu's words immediately attracted a lot of response. "Good." Ao Xieyun smiled helplessly and said, "That's good. However, this matter should be done sooner rather than later. No one can take this saber back, not even the aristocratic families. I guarantee that this saber will still be there after one night. Why don't we compete with the aristocratic families right here and now?" Brother Ao is right. Tu Qianhao immediately agreed. Li Xiongtu strode out and said to the soldiers who were still outside, "Get a few of you here. Hurry up and clear the place. Get your emperor and empress out. We're taking over this place." Everyone couldn't help but roll their eyes when they heard the tone of the King of Darkness. "We are taking this place." Bro, the place I'm talking about is the royal palace of a country, but all the officials felt very satisfied. So what if it is the royal palace? We are taking it. That is taking it. Since ancient times, no one has taken the royal palace. Haha, this is the first time since the beginning of time. The leading general immediately turned red. He was so angry that his chest was about to explode. It has always been the government taking the people. Since when was the royal palace taken by others? In his anger, he was about to give the order to attack without hesitation. "General Xiao, do as this official says." Following an elegant voice, Diwu Qingro slowly approached on a horse. "Bring the emperor and the others out." Then he cupped his hands towards Ao Xieyun and Mo Tianyun and said with a smile, "This time we will take a step back. The royal palace can be temporarily handed over to you. However, after this matter, you must give me, Diwu Qingro, a punishment." Li Xiongtu snorted coldly. His curly beard trembled as he said indifferently, "What if we don't give you this method?" Diwu Qingro narrowed his eyes and said, "Then, even the great clans of the 3 heavens will have to give this old man a punishment." His voice was resolute and decisive, and it actually carried a faint murderous aura. Seeing that the lawless Li Xiongtu was about to fall out with Di Wuqingro, Ao Xieyun hurriedly came out to mediate. Prime Minister, your words are too serious. We had no choice but to borrow the palace this time. After this matter, no matter what, I will definitely give you an explanation. He glared fiercely at Li Xiongtu and scolded in a low voice, idiot. Once the situation turns sour, this saber will become Great Zhao's. Li Xiongtu repeatedly agreed. He clasped his hands nervously and said without thinking, Prime Minister is indeed far-sighted, wise and heroic, handsome and suave, that a man of striking appearance, devastatingly beautiful, peerless and unparalleled. But Ao Xieyun twisted his ear and pulled him back. He was both angry and amused. Just a moment ago, this guy was scolding her, and now he was praising her without any sincerity at all. Di Wuqingro had a good temperament, but he was so angry that the muscles on his face started to twitch. He flicked his sleeves and said, That's it. He turned his head and shouted, General Xiao, what are you waiting for? Then he turned around and left. If he stayed here any longer, Di Wuqingro reckoned that he would be angered to death by Li Xiongtu before he was killed by King of Hell Chu. While Great Zhao was organizing the evacuation, they were formally discussing how to divide the spoils. The entire royal palace has been burning until now. This royal palace has basically been declared to be scrapped. Even if the fire was put out now, only broken walls and broken tiles would be left. It would be better to leave it as a source of light for them. General Xiao waved his hand and angrily left with his soldiers. Now, a duke wants to participate in the battle. Ao Xieyun held a lot in his hand and said, Great Zhao's family comes to me to draw lots. One person will get a bye in every round. Don't kill him. Moreover, the next round will start after a quarter of an hour after the end of the round. In other words, the remaining people will lose their qualifications to compete in the first round. Then, 5 people will be selected in the second round. 3 people will be selected in the third round. And the owner of the treasured saber will be decided in the fourth round. Ng Tianyun coldly said. At this moment, a shy and astringent voice said, Brother Ao, Brother Mo, may I ask if poison can be used in this competition? Mo Tianyun fiercely looked over as if he had been bitten by a poisonous snake when he heard these words. If looks could kill, Mo Tianyun would have already dismembered this guy who had just spoken. It was Poison Spirit who had spoken. Poison. Oh Du Xiao. Ao Xieyun also had a headache. Is there an antidote for all the poisons? Of course. Oh Du Xiao blinked. Bastard. Mo Tianyun angrily shouted. Is there an antidote for the bone-eroding fog? There is no such antidote. Oh Du Xiao shamelessly said. But it can be alleviated. It needs to be alleviated every 10 days. Damn it. Li Xiongtu and Tu Gan Hao cursed at the same time. Once poisoned, if they did not want to turn into black water, wouldn't they become Odu Zhao's slave? Since there is an antidote you can join. Ao Xieyun made the final decision and said, Come, let's draw lots. If there is one left, it will be mine. Thus, under Ao Xieyun's leadership, the 10 great clans began to draw lots for the competition. Perhaps even Ao Xieyun himself didn't expect that other than a few unexpected clans, the drawing of lots this time would actually faintly determine the ranking of the clans in the next 3 days. It was the same as the results of the competition. While the royal palace was in full swing fighting for Sunlight Saber, Chu Yang had already returned to Heaven-Reaching Tower. He had changed his clothes and taken a bath. There was a cup of tea in front of him. The fragrance of the tea rose in spirals. He held a book in his hand and crossed his legs. He was very relaxed. After a while, Guda, the fastest Du Xing, finally came back. How is it over there? Chu Yang asked. It's over there already? So fast? Gu Du Xing asked in surprise. They should still be fighting for the saber, but my matter has temporarily come to an end. Chu Yang casually said. The royal palace is finished. According to what I saw with my own eyes, there were probably a few concubines and officials who were buried there. There were about 30,000 people who died around the royal palace. That's all. Cough cough. Gu Du Xing choked. That's all? Are you still not satisfied? I am a little dissatisfied. Because these clans and the army will not fight in the 3 heavens. Chu Yang said with some dissatisfaction. If they fight, it would be even better. If they really fight, then there would be no need for King of Hell Chu. Gu Duxing sneered. It was unknown whether it was praise or derision. My side is fine. Dong Wuxiang is still preparing. Gu Duxing said. Dong Wuxiang wants to detonate the Moonlight Sword at the headquarters of Golden Horse Riders Department. That's a good idea. Chu Yang rubbed his chin and laughed. Remember, we must take advantage of this opportunity to release all the people that Diwu Qingro captured. Even if we can't release all of them, we must at least release some of them. Otherwise, this plan will ultimately fail. Don't worry. Gu Duxing grinned and said excitedly, let me tell you a piece of good news. After talking with Xie Wuxiang, I suddenly comprehended the principles of the saber and sword. I'm afraid that it won't be long before I become a third-grade revered sword. That's really good news. Chu Yao praised. I also have a piece of good news to tell you. What is it? Gu Duxing asked. He had not yet woken up from the pleasant surprise of breaking through. Cough cough, Gu Yinyang is dead. Chu Yang coughed twice and said, I killed him. Gu Duxing was immediately dumbstruck. Gu Yinyang is dead? You killed him? After a long time, Gu Duxing looked at Chu Yang with a complicated expression. There was a hint of confusion and melancholy. There was also a hint of relief. I killed him. Chu Yang nodded affirmatively. What do you think? I'm just thinking. How could foster father accept this matter? Gu Duxing sat down in a daze. Gu Yinyang's death is not regrettable. With his actions I wanted to kill him long ago, but I couldn't. Now sigh. My heart is in a mess. If Sister Miao knew, she would be sad. There's one more thing. Chu Yang said quietly. What is it? Gu Duxing smiled bitterly. Gu Yinyu is also dead. Chu Yang looked up at him. I killed him. Gu Duxing stood up fiercely and gasped for breath. You really dare? Gu Duxing stood up like a horse that had taken aphrodisiac. He ran back and forth in the room for a while, dazzling Chu Yang's eyes. He kept repeating the same sentence over and over again. What should we do? What should I do? What should I do? Chu Yang said sympathetically, what should I do? Gu Duxing sat down dejectedly. His heart was suddenly at a loss. Dead? The two people who had bullied him since he was a child, who had set him up many times over the years, who had always wanted to kill him, were dead? Just like that? The two of them are dead. I only feel happy. But I'm just worried. How will foster father bear this matter? These two people were his sons. Even if they did not live up to expectations, they were still his flesh and blood. Gu Duxing sat down and held his head with both hands, his face full of pain. Killing the two of them is a gift from me, your brother, to you. Chu Yang said indifferently. A gift? Gu Duxing said in a daze. It's also a gift from me to foster father and the Gu clan. Chu Yang chuckled. Being the clan head is much better than the two of them. At least the future of the Gu clan will be guaranteed. Gu Miaoling will be able to make peace sooner. Gu Duxing did not know whether to laugh or cry. I know all this, but the problem is... What's the problem? Chu Yang spread out his hands. They're already dead. This thing is not grass. If you cut off its head, it will grow back. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.